Part 54. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Bulletin Leng. Chapter 532. What gift? Upon hearing this, the supreme leader's heart twitched violently, and he suddenly had a bad premonition. He suddenly regretted that he shouldn't have taken the enlightenment leaf just now. The performance of the Lord of Great Qin is clearly that of a domineering and powerful person. How could such a person put himself at a disadvantage? Now that he has accepted something as precious as the enlightenment leaf, the Lord of Qin will definitely want something even more precious than it. Thinking of this, the supreme leader's eyes twitched, and he felt even more regretful. I was really fascinated by the enlightenment leaf just now, and I stupidly accepted it, but now I am riding a tiger. If you don't agree, I'm afraid it will anger the Lord of Qin. But if he agrees, the Lord of Qin will definitely open his mouth and take advantage of the situation. All in all, there is a pit on the left and right, and jumping into it is inevitable. Ahem. The supreme leader pretended to be calm and said, "If your majesty wants anything, just ask." Qin Mu smiled lightly and looked at the supreme leader with a playful look. "If my guess is correct, these enlightenment leaves should be of great use to you, right?" Qin Mu looked at the supreme leader with a smile and said slowly, without immediately stating his request. "Well, yes, it is indeed very useful," the supreme leader said bravely. "If nothing else, this enlightenment leaf is enough to drive all the monks in the world crazy. Although this enlightenment fruit is just a leaf, it is more effective than any elixir, even the elixir. After taking it, it can increase your understanding and qualifications 1,000 times. Of course, if you are lucky enough to swallow the fruit of enlightenment, it will definitely be a priceless treasure, and it can even give a mediocre person the best talent in the world in an instant." At this moment, the supreme leader is ready. As long as the Lord of Qin's request is not excessive, he doesn't mind paying a small price. Anyway, there are enough treasures accumulated over the years. Now that you know its importance, I won't beat around the bush. Qin Mu nodded, with a sinister curve at the corner of his mouth. "I have no need for this enlightenment leaf, so I will give it to you. In exchange, I also ask for something of great use to me. It's not too much." Bar. The supreme leader frowned slightly, wondering what kind of medicine Qin Mu was selling in the gourd. But at this time, he was already riding a tiger and could only say blankly, "Your Majesty, please tell me. If I can do it, I will naturally be obliged to do it." "Since the supreme leader has said so, I won't be polite," Qin Mu chuckled, and then said, "I heard that there is a fragment of 9 Heavens divine record hidden in the Holy Land Library Pavilion of the Supreme Section. It is a technique left by the immortal. I wonder if it is true or false." After Qin Mu finished speaking, the supreme leader's expression suddenly changed, and he said in surprise, "Your Majesty is well informed." Very few people knew about this matter, not even the disciples and elders around him. This shows how powerful Qin Mu's methods and intelligence network are. At the same time, he became more and more vigilant, feeling that he had underestimated the Lord of Qin. However, the supreme leader then thought again. If the Lord of Qin had not had such means, he would have been destroyed long ago. Moreover, the supreme leader believed that the Lord of Qin would not ask about this matter for no reason. As expected of the supreme leader, "You are really happy? Then I won't talk nonsense. I want you to give me the 9 Heavens divine record." Qin Mu said without hesitation. This news was told to him by Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan once traveled to the Daoxuan realm and accidentally learned that it is said that the Juxiao divine record is a very mysterious skill created by immortals. But due to the lack of complete chapters, no one can understand it. The supreme leader hesitated a little. This is 9 Heavens divine record. If it were given away, wouldn't it be a huge loss? What? Could it be that the supreme leader is reluctant to part with it? Or does he think that I don't have the strength to keep this divine record? Qin Mu looked at the supreme leader with a half-smile. The leader of the supreme religion shook his head and said, "That's not the reason. It's just that the nine heavens divine record is the most precious treasure of our religion. It is the foundation of the supreme religion and has never been spread outside. If it is given to your majesty, then I will teach." The supreme leader did not continue, but the meaning of his words was obvious. Qin Mu sneered and said sarcastically, "Master Taizhang, please don't forget, what is your current status?" The Supreme Master's face turned red, he was silent for a while, and then gritted his teeth and said, "What your majesty said is that I, the Supreme Master, have surrendered to your majesty now, and the nine heavens divine record naturally belongs to your majesty." Although the Supreme Leader was heartbroken, there was nothing he could do about it. After all, he had already agreed to the request of the Lord of Qin. If you refuse now, you will be blatantly disobeying the order, and I am afraid that the entire supreme religion will suffer. To be honest, he was not willing to let the supreme sect follow in the footsteps of the Wangxiang Palace and Wu Yahai. And besides this method, he has no choice. After all, the Enlightenment leaf has a huge appeal to him, even more important than the nine heavens divine record. Very good. Since the Supreme Leader is willing to offer the treasure, I will reluctantly accept it. Qin Mu nodded with satisfaction and said, "Don't worry, I won't let you suffer. If the Supreme Master encounters trouble in the future, just tell me." The Supreme Leader breathed a sigh of relief and secretly cursed the cunning fox, but he could only nod with a wry smile. "Your Majesty is serious. To be honest, this Juxiao divine record has been in our supreme religion for more than 10,000 years, but no one has been able to understand it." After a pause, he looked at Qin Mu and said, "Since your majesty needs it, I will give it to you." "Oh," Qin Mu raised his eyebrows, "no one has seen it for 10,000 years. Well, not only is the content of Nine Heavens divine record obscure and difficult to understand, but it is also too incomplete and does not look like a complete set of techniques at all." The Supreme Leader sighed. This was one of the reasons why their Supreme Leader did not dare to try rashly. Several of their ancestors from the Supreme Religion spent their whole lives trying to complete the Nine Heavens divine records, but they all failed. Not even a clue could be found. Qin Mu's eyes flickered, and he vaguely guessed that the Nine Heavens divine record might be a real immortal level magical power. Otherwise, how could it be possible to trap several ancestors of the Taizhang religion, and they would not be able to understand it thoroughly? Qin Mu grinned and said slowly, "I don't have to worry about this." "I don't have to worry about it? I have my own sense of discretion." The Supreme Leader sighed helplessly and stopped speaking. "By the way, there is one more thing. I still need to use your sect's inherited treasure," the taking mirror Qin Mu suddenly said. The Supreme Leader's eyes narrowed, showing hesitation. The taking mirror is the supreme treasure of their supreme sect, possessing magical power. It's just that he was a little unsure about what Qin Mu was planning to do. After all, this was a treasure related to the inheritance of the supreme sect. "Your Majesty, this thing is related to the inheritance of my section. If I lend it, I'm afraid it won't be appropriate, right?" The Supreme Leader thought for a moment before speaking slowly. Qin Mu smiled calmly, "The Supreme Leader is too worried. I just want to investigate. After all, the inherited treasure of your sect is too mysterious, and I am looking forward to it very much." The corners of Taizhang cult leader's mouth twitched slightly. He just collected a piece of enlightenment leaf. Why does it feel like Qin Mu is preparing to catch all the treasures of their supreme religion? "I believe that the leader of the Ether Supreme will definitely not mind," Qin Mu continued, his tone was quite sincere. "The Supreme Leader is still a little hesitant. This matter is not a trivial matter. A little carelessness will destroy the entire supreme religion. Your Majesty, please forgive me for not agreeing to this. How about I change it to something else?" "Oh," Qin Mu frowned and said, Are you really unwilling to agree? I really can't agree, and I hope your majesty will forgive you. The supreme leader shook his head. Qin Mu looked at him with squinted eyes and said mockingly. Now that your supreme leader has surrendered to me, are you reluctant to part with even a mere mirror? If the supreme leader is worried, I can make an oath to heaven and never take away the taking mirror. Listening to Qin Mu's aggressive words, the supreme leader felt aggrieved, but the situation was stronger than others, so he could only compromise. Okay, now that our sect is weak, we don't have much information left. Since your majesty wants to take a look, then go ahead and take a look. In the end, the supreme leader nodded and agreed, taking advantage of the situation and even sold out miserably. Then the supreme leader took out a simple bronze mirror. This mirror is about the size of a palm and looks unremarkable. Its surface is bronze-colored and looks ordinary. Qin Mu stared deeply at the bronze mirror. The material of this bronze mirror was unusual. Qin Mu estimated that even the imperial soldiers would not be able to smash this bronze mirror into pieces in a matter of seconds. Especially the simple and thick aura, which seems to have gone through hundreds of millions of years of vicissitudes, and also seems to contain some earth-shattering power. Is this Tai Ching Jing? Qin Mu murmured, staring closely at Tai Ching Jing. What's even more astonishing is that this bronze mirror actually has spirituality, as if it is refuting his gaze. Qin Mu thought, and a majestic spiritual power suddenly poured into the bronze mirror. The bronze mirror buzzed, emitting circles of bronze light. Ha ha, your majesty, don't be surprised. This taking mirror is the most precious treasure of our supreme religion. It naturally has a spirit, the supreme religion master said with a chuckle. This taking mirror not only has a weapon spirit, but is also extremely defensive. Even the emperor may not be able to break through the defense of this taking mirror. It is a treasure that their supreme sect relies on to inherit. Oh? Really? Then I want to see how powerful its defense is, Qin Mu sneered. With a flick of his finger, the void exploded and a bright golden light flew away. Boom! There was a loud noise, and the golden light hit the taking mirror hard. A terrifying wave of power suddenly erupted, and the surrounding space shook violently. Such an attack was enough to destroy thousands of miles of mountains and rivers, but it was blocked when it landed on the taking mirror. The taking mirror did not move at all, not even shaking. Qin Mu's face changed slightly, and a strange color appeared in his eyes. Although he did not use all his strength, the blow just now would have killed even a peak saint. But how could this taking mirror be blocked so easily? It is indeed a treasure, Qin Mu sighed in his heart. It is indeed the most inherited treasure of the Taizhang section. The quality of this bronze mirror alone is enough to stand out from the crowd. The supreme leader coughed twice and reminded, Your Majesty, I wonder if you have seen enough. I hope your Majesty will keep your promise. Before he finished speaking, Qin Mu reached out to grab the taking mirror and took it into his hand. Your Majesty, the supreme leader's face suddenly changed, he stood up suddenly, and roared, Return the mirror to me quickly. Ha, don't worry, I told you that I just want to investigate, Qin Mu said with a smile. The Supreme Master was furious and said angrily, Your Majesty, I will tell you what you want to see. Qin Mu waved his hand and said, Don't worry, I will study it for a while, and then I will ask you. What? The Supreme Master widened his eyes and looked at Qin Mu in disbelief. How can you take away the taking mirror? This is the treasure of my section. Qin Mu flipped his hand and threw the taking mirror into the system backpack, snorting coldly, Don't worry, Supreme Master, I will definitely keep my word. When I study it clearly, I will return the taking mirror and will never rob you of any treasures of the Supreme Sect. The Supreme Master almost spit out a mouthful of blood. What kind of words are these? What do you mean by studying it clearly? This is clearly blackmail. No, hand over the mirror quickly, the Supreme Master gritted his teeth and shouted. This is the survival of the Supreme Section. How can Qin Mu take it away? Don't talk nonsense. I said I would send it back to you, so I will definitely send it back. Chinmu was too lazy to pay attention and said casually. You are going too far. The Supreme Master was furious and almost jumped into a rage. The Supreme Master felt so aggrieved. As the top force in Deoxuan domain, how could the Supreme Master have ever been so angry? Unfortunately, he didn't dare to confront Chinmu head-on, because he was at a disadvantage. Ji Tianming, who was not far away, stared at the scene in front of him in amazement. He looked at Chinmu, then at his master, and suddenly felt a little dizzy. His master has always been cold and ruthless, high above, and unparalleled in majesty. He has always been the one to beat others. This kind of scene of being beaten back is really rare. It's really interesting. Ji Tianming looked at Chinmu, and a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. The Supreme Patriarch took a deep breath, suppressed his inner resentment, and asked in a deep voice, "How long do you want to watch it?" Chinmu glanced at him and said casually, "What do you think?" The Supreme Patriarch cursed inwardly that he was shameless, his face twitched, and said, "Please forgive me for speaking frankly, this taking mirror is not as simple as your Majesty thinks. If your Majesty touches it rashly, I am afraid you will suffer." Chinmu sneered and did not believe the Supreme Patriarch's nonsense at all, but he did not refute it. Instead, he looked at Ji Tianming, who was staring at him, and said with a smile, "Since it is so dangerous, then leave someone who understands the taking realm by my side. I think his talent is okay, so let him stay under my command. If I don't understand anything, I can also ask him." Hearing this, the Supreme Patriarch almost choked to death on his own saliva, his eyes widened, and he was stunned. "What? Stay under your Majesty's command." The Supreme Patriarch followed Chinmu's gaze and saw Ji Tianming, and the corners of his eyes twitched violently. Chinmu not only wants to take away the treasures of the Supreme Sect, but also wants to take away the most talented disciple of the Supreme Sect. This is too heartless. The Supreme Sect Master was heartbroken. Ji Tianming was a talented seedling that he had cultivated with great difficulty, and he could inherit his legacy in the future. And the most important thing is that Ji Tianming has another identity. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Leng Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 533. The Supreme Leader looked at Ji Tianming in the distance and sighed in his heart. There is a secret hidden in Ji Tianming. This secret is related to the rise and fall of the entire Supreme Religion. He will never allow anyone to know. Therefore, Ji Tianming must not leave the Taishang Jiao. The Supreme Leader's eyes were firm, and then he looked at Chinmu, feeling helpless in his heart. How could this kid do such a thing? It's a bit too much to ask for just one or two things, but to ask people to go there as well. This does not give the Supreme Master a way to survive at all. The Supreme Leader wanted to cry but had no tears. If he had known this, he would not have made this deal with Chinmu even if he was beaten to death. It's a pity that there is no regret in selling medicine in this world, and the Supreme Leader's intestines are filled with regret. What? The Supreme Master is unwilling to give up. Chinmu raised his eyebrows and said indifferently. To be honest with your Majesty, this boy is too stupid to be trained. If he stays with your Majesty, I'm afraid it will delay his Majesty's cultivation. After hesitating for a moment, the Supreme Leader finally plucked up the courage to speak. Oh? Are you stupid in nature? Chinmu smiled jokingly, glanced at Ji Tianming, and said, I don't see it. Well. The Supreme Master was at a loss for words. After a while, he coughed dryly and explained awkwardly, this child Tianming has been naughty since he was a child. He is uneducated and has no skills. He is really not worthy of His Majesty's respect. I will take him back and teach him well. I also hope that your Majesty will pay attention. After saying that, the supreme leader immediately turned around and winked at Ji Tianming. Ji Tianming was stunned for a moment, a little helpless. But seeing the stern look in the supreme leader's eyes, he couldn't help but nodded, "Yes, I am too stupid to live up to His Majesty's expectations." In fact, he was quite willing to follow Qin Mu for a while, because he was very curious about how powerful the other party was and why he had so many mysterious behaviors. Following Qin Mu this time may broaden his horizons and increase his knowledge. If this is the case, it will also be of great benefit to his practice. But he could also see that his master was determined not to let him leave. He could only give up temporarily. After all, he is a direct disciple of the Supreme Section. No matter what decision he makes, the first thing he must consider is the sect. "Well, how can such a smart and alert child like you be stupid?" Qin Mu glanced at the Supreme Leader with a half-smile, and said with a faint smile. "I just think it's more convenient to have someone who is familiar with taking Jing by my side, isn't it? I believe that the Supreme Leader will not refuse my small request, right?" Qin Mu looked at the Supreme Leader with a smile, his eyes full of determination. The corners of Tai's Hang cult master's mouth trembled wildly, and he wished he could say something to the sky. "This is not a small request, it is just like a lion talking loudly, okay?" The Supreme Leader said with a bitter look on his face. "Your Majesty, although the taking mirror is precious, it is only a dead object. But destiny is different. Destiny has great responsibilities and heavy responsibilities. This is the hope of our supreme religion for the future. If anything happens, this loss will happen. Oh, I can't make a choice." At the end of the sentence, he couldn't help but shake his head slightly, showing an expression of sadness and regret. Qin Mu smiled when he heard this and said, "It seems that the Supreme Leader is not prepared to agree to my proposal." Alas, the Supreme Leader sighed again and said, "Your Majesty, your conditions are indeed harsh. It's not that I don't agree, it's just that I'm a little embarrassed." Qin Mu glanced at him lightly, let out a long sigh, and said with a sad expression, "In this case, I can only study the taking mirror by myself. If the research direction is wrong and the taking mirror is damaged, I will not be blamed at that time." "Your Majesty, how could you do this?" The Supreme Leader was completely angry. He never expected that Qin Mu would be so shameless. He was simply bullying others. Qin Mu spread his hands and said innocently, "I can't help it. Who makes you refuse to agree to me? It is inevitable that some parts will be broken when the time comes to return it." The Supreme Leader's face twitched violently, he took a deep breath, suppressed the urge to beat the opponent violently, and said coldly, "Your Majesty is really greedy." Both each other. Qin Mu shrugged with unabashed disdain. The two looked at each other and sneered, taunting each other. Ji Tianming looked at the interaction between Qin Mu and the Supreme Leader with a rather strange expression. He always felt that something was wrong. The Supreme Leader endured the pain of his heart. After being silent for a long time, he finally said slowly, "This matter is of great importance. I need to discuss it with the elders before I can agree." Qin Mu looked at the Supreme Sect seat beside him and asked, "Which elders do you want to discuss with? I will kill them all directly so that you don't have to go to such trouble." "Supreme Leader. Ji Tianming. The Supreme Congregation. Damn it. This sounds so harsh. This is a naked threat. How can you let others live like this?" The elders of the Tai's Hang sect all lowered their heads and looked at their feet, as if they couldn't see me. The Supreme Leader took a deep breath, tried to calm down the turbulent emotions in his heart, and said in a softer voice, "Your Majesty is joking, how could I let your Majesty kill my elders?" Qin Mu chuckled and said, "I'm just talking about it for fun. Master Tai's Hang, please don't take it to heart." "Humph." The Supreme Leader blew out 2 streams of hot air from his nostrils, obviously very angry. In particular, the Supreme Leader had nothing to do with Qin Mu. Qin Mu was obviously determined to defeat them. No matter how angry he is, what can he do to the other party? However, the supreme leader, who has dominated the world for many years, is not a fuel-saving lamp. He quickly calmed down. The leader took a deep breath, barely suppressed the anger and aggrievedness in his heart, and said after pondering for a while, "This matter is of great importance. I must discuss it with all the elders. Waiting for my news, I hope that your Majesty will give me 5 days. After 5 days, I will definitely give you a satisfactory answer." The supreme leader took a deep breath and spoke calmly, with a smile on his face that was uglier than crying. "I don't have time to waste time with you," Xuanhuan said calmly. "Think about it in 3 breaths, otherwise don't blame me. 1, 2. Seeing Xuanhuan's attitude of not sparing any room, the supreme leader's cheeks beat violently a few times, and he felt aggrieved and panicked. He swore that he had never encountered such an arrogant and domineering emperor in his life. The supreme leader looked at Ji Tianming in the distance, then at Xuanhuan, and finally sighed and said, "That's all, Your Majesty, you can do whatever you want." "Well, you are very sensible." Xuanhuan patted the supreme leader on the shoulder with appreciation and said with a smile, "In this case, you should also tell me how to use the taking mirror, right?" Supreme Leader: "It's really getting more and more extreme. If this continues, the Supreme Master may not really want to change his surname to Qin." The Supreme Leader took a deep breath, forced himself to calm down, then nodded and said, "Your Majesty, please don't go too far. After all, my Supreme Master is an upright and famous section. How can I hand over the method of using the treasure casually? If it spreads, how can I lose my dignity?" After saying this, he continued as if to emphasize, "The taking mirror is only for your Majesty to have a look at, it is not a gift to your Majesty. Your Majesty, please understand the cause and effect relationship." Xuanhuan smiled slightly, no longer trying to push the envelope. He was very satisfied that he could achieve the step without losing any blood. "Of course I know this truth." Xuanhuan nodded and said, "The reason why I wanted to borrow the taking mirror to take a look is just out of curiosity. Now that the Supreme Leader has agreed, how can I not keep my promise?" The Supreme Leader frowned and thought for a moment, then said, "Since your Majesty is willing to keep his promise, I will give you the taking mirror, but..." Xuanhuan raised his eyebrows and asked lightly, "Just what?" The Supreme Leader hesitated for a moment and said, "It's just that I need your Majesty to make a blood oath of heaven and promise never to reveal the secret of the taking mirror." "Okay." Xuanhuan nodded in agreement without hesitation. It was just a blank check anyway. He didn't care at all, let alone worry about breaking the oath of heaven and causing divine punishment. "Then your Majesty, please make a blood oath of heaven." The Supreme Leader breathed a sigh of relief. As long as the other party agrees, it will be easy to handle. He doesn't believe that the other party can resist the punishment of God. "Okay." Xuanhuan nodded lightly. He raised his right hand and stretched his index finger in front of his eyes. A ray of red light appeared in the center of his index finger, and then moved towards the center of his eyebrows. In an instant, a drop of golden blood flowed into his mind along his eyebrows, forming a mysterious rune that disappeared into the depths of his soul. "Today I swear an oath with my blood." Xuanhuan's eyes became firm and he read out a simple and obscure mantra in a serious tone. As his mantra sounded, layers of light suddenly appeared on the surface of Xuanhuan's body, as if a thin film covered his body, exuding a hazy and holy white light. The void around him also rippled, as if some kind of rule had been touched. Xuanhuan looked like an immortal coming to the world, so magical and amazing. "I make a blood oath to heaven that I will never reveal the secret of the supreme holy object, the taking mirror. If I violate it, I will suffer catastrophe, death, and eternal disaster," Xuanhuan said lightly. The moment his words fell, a sound of thunder seemed to resound in the darkness, and a terrifying force of heaven and earth appeared out of thin air above Xuanhuan's head, condensing into a huge silver-white sun. Ji Tianming suddenly felt his scalp numb, as if his every move was being monitored by the other party. No matter what he wanted to do, he could not hide it from the surveillance of heaven and earth. The Supreme Leader's pupils also shrank suddenly, and he looked at Qin Mu in shock. I saw Qin Mu slowly closing his eyes and sitting cross-legged on the high platform, his whole body filled with misty light. The huge silver-white sun above the head rotates slowly, releasing a dazzling light that seems to contain the power to destroy the world. A dazzling white flame suddenly appeared out of thin air, covering the entire Halloween mountain. This white light is blazing and gorgeous, carrying an indescribably vast, mysterious, majestic, and holy aura, as if it can wash away all filth and evil in the world. At the moment when the white flame appeared, the entire Halloween mountain was boiling with it. Countless birds, beasts, insects, and fish leaped up one after another, gathered towards this side, and trembled on the ground. Immediately afterwards, this dazzling flame spread rapidly, wrapping up the entire Halloween mountain and turning into a brilliant white light curtain, cutting off everything outside the Halloween mountain. Qin Mu's body was suspended above the white light curtain, bathed in white flames. His figure gradually blurred, turning into transparent shadows, like a god, standing in the sky. He slowly closed his eyes, and a brilliant white light burst out all over his body, and circles of white ripples visible to the naked eye rippled. His body seemed to be slowly melting, turning into nothingness, becoming one with the surrounding white flames. At this moment, Qin Mu seemed to have turned into a sun, lighting up the entire world and emitting endless light and heat. The Supreme Leader stared at the scene in front of him with his eyes widened, and murmured, "The light of heaven." He had heard about the light of heaven, which was the purest innate spiritual light bred by heaven and earth. It was a gift from heaven to all living beings and a symbol of the admiration of all beings. The light of heaven is the core original power in thousands of Dharma. It is the supreme treasure that any monk dreams of. Only the chosen ones or those who are favored by heaven have the opportunity to obtain it. Only those who are closest to the Dao will produce the light of the heavenly Dao. The light of heaven represents the presence of heaven. Only when one is recognized by heaven can one be blessed by heaven and become a favored person. What is going on? What is his identity? He is actually blessed by heaven. The Supreme Leader's expression changed. This is simply incredible and unbelievable. Evoking this kind of innate divine light means that one's behavior has reached the pinnacle, even transcending the way of heaven. However, even if he is a veteran half-step emperor who has practiced for thousands of years, he does not dare to hope that he can trigger the light of heaven. How long did Qin Mu Ki live? At just around 20 years old, he has already reached the peak of his realm and achieved the status of a half-step emperor. He can be called a monster-level genius and will be remembered forever. What's more important is that Qin Mu's Taoism goes far beyond that, and he can actually trigger the light of heaven. You know, the light of heaven is a power that even the powerful emperor is not qualified to master. Such a person will definitely dominate the whole world and be the best in the past and present. Thinking of this, the Supreme Leader couldn't help but shudder. Once such a monster truly rises, how terrifying will it be? He couldn't help but feel grateful for his decision just now. If he insists on being his enemy, he may die without a burial place. Ji Tianming was also looking at Qin Mu floating on the high platform at this time, his eyes full of shock. Although he didn't know what the light of heaven was, he could feel the fear from the fluctuations caused by Qin Mu. It's really getting stronger. Ji Tianming's eyes were filled with brilliance and he whispered secretly. He found that he could not see through Qin Mu more and more, and the other party brought him more and more surprises. At this time, Qin Mu opened his eyes, stood up, slowly walked down the steps, and said to Ji Tianming and the Supreme Leader, "Now that I have made a blood oath to heaven, shouldn't it be time for you to fulfill your agreement?" The Supreme Leader was stunned for a moment when he heard this, and then immediately got out of the shock, with a trace of helplessness and bitterness in his eyes. He originally wanted the other party to make a Dao oath as the last guarantee, but he didn't expect that the other party actually attracted the blessing of the Dao. How can you play this? The Supreme Leader is now seriously doubting that he may not be able to get his taking mirror back. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mi and Buletin Leng. Chapter 534. Your Majesty, this really makes it difficult for me. The Supreme Master said with a bitter smile. Qin Mu raised his eyebrows and asked, "Oh? What, do you want to regret it?" The Supreme Master shook his head and explained, "Of course I won't regret it, but, oh, forget it, since I have decided to bet, let's go crazy once." After that, he took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Your Majesty, I hope you can keep your promise and live up to my Supreme Master." After that, he raised his hand to the sky and solemnly announced, "Supreme Master, today, I will swear a blood oath to the heavenly Dao. From today on, I will be loyal to your Majesty forever. If I violate this oath, I will be struck by 5 thunders and die. My Taoism will be forever destroyed by the heavenly Dao." As soon as the Supreme Master's voice fell, lightning and thunder suddenly flashed above the sky, and dark clouds quickly gathered, forming a gloomy and strange picture. A thunderous rumble came from the sky, as if announcing to the world, and as if warning the Supreme Master that he was not allowed to regret. At the same time, wisps of purple cloud surged down and wrapped around the Supreme Master. Each beam of light contained a mysterious Dao rhyme, as if it had the power to see through everything in the world. These purple clouds contained the majestic and vast power of the heavenly Dao, like chains wrapped around the limbs and bones of the Supreme Master. In an instant, a mysterious aura rose from the body of the Supreme Master, causing the sky and the earth to change color and the wind and clouds to change. At the same time, countless tiny rays of light appeared on the forehead of the Supreme Master, intertwining and entwining, forming an extremely mysterious and complex rune, exuding a mysterious breath, as if outlining an infinite avenue. Ji Tianming's eyes gleamed as he stared at the forehead of the Supreme Patriarch, as if he wanted to record it, because the rune on the forehead of the Supreme Patriarch was very mysterious, and seemed to involve some kind of avenue. Boom! Suddenly, the sky exploded, and a huge black hole appeared out of thin air, as if leading to another unknown realm. In an instant, the world changed, and the weather was cloudy, sunny, rainy, and snowy, as if the end of the world was coming. This world was instantly replaced by various strange scenes, as if it had come to a brand new world. Then, a thick golden thunder struck the Supreme Patriarch. This thunder was not lethal, but it dimmed the light around the Supreme Patriarch, and a layer of golden lines faintly flowed on the surface of the skin, looking solemn and solemn. Then, the flames all over the sky swept the entire sky, turning into a ball of blazing flames and attacking the Supreme Patriarch. Then there were waves of icy air, solidifying the void, freezing the sky, and turning the entire world into a sea of ice and snow. For a moment, many strange phenomena appeared, and the horror was extreme, as if to destroy everything in the world. Ji Tianming looked at the scene in front of him, stunned, trembling all over, and couldn't help muttering to himself. It's just a vow of heaven, how can it trigger a heavenly tribulation? He really couldn't understand what was going on. The Master had only made a small blood oath of the Great Way, why did a heavenly tribulation appear? But when he thought about Qin Mu's only vow of heaven, it triggered such a strange phenomenon, and suddenly everything could be understood. Perhaps it was because the oath made by his master was to Qin Mu, so it triggered such a big strange phenomenon? Thinking of this, Ji Tianming's eyes became more strange. Who is Qin Mu? Just making a blood oath of heaven can make such a big commotion. Could it be that Qin Mu is really the son of heaven? Ji Tianming felt that his guess was almost right. After all, who can frequently trigger the blood oath of heaven? Even the heaven can bring down such a terrifying heavenly tribulation. If it wasn't the Son of Heaven, who could do it? Moreover, the attitude of the Supreme Master has proved everything. He couldn't bear to give up Qin Mu, the Son of Heaven. That's why he made a blood oath to the heaven, and tried every means to retain Qin Mu, the Son of Heaven. Ji Tianming thought to himself, it seems that I still underestimated my master. Although the Supreme Master has a strong cultivation, he is cautious by nature, and he will never take risks easily. He was able to make a blood oath to the heaven, which shows his trust in Qin Mu. If the Supreme Master didn't believe in Qin Mu, how could he make such a heavenly oath? Ji Tianming's eyes flashed, and the corners of his lips slowly rose, and a beautiful arc appeared at the corners of his mouth. In this way, his interest in Qin Mu became stronger. A person who even takes the oath of the heavens so seriously, what kind of terrifying level will he reach in the future? Ji Tianming's eyes lit up, with a faint smile on his lips, and he had already made up his mind. At this time, the Supreme Master in the sky was confused. He had never expected that he would bring about a heavenly tribulation just by making a simple blood oath. Fortunately, this heavenly tribulation was not very powerful, as if it was just a warning to him. But even so, the Supreme Master still felt the huge power hidden under this heavenly tribulation. This heavenly tribulation gave the Supreme Master an unprecedented sense of oppression, as if he was not facing a thunderbolt, but a majestic existence of heaven and earth, which he could not match. This was a tremor from the depths of his soul, which made him feel palpitations. He has no doubt that as long as he dares to violate this oath of heaven, he will be beyond redemption and die. He had also experienced this desperate feeling when he was in the cave realm. That time, he was almost beaten to death by a Dao Mirror Master, and he was on the verge of death. Fortunately, the Dao Mirror Master didn't know his true strength and thought he was vulnerable, so he managed to escape. If his body and soul were not far superior to ordinary warriors, he would definitely die in this battle. As expected of heaven. As expected of the supreme existence that controls the life and death of all living beings. Even though the Supreme Leader has been practicing for thousands of years and has gone through great storms, he still cannot avoid being shocked and frightened. His eyes flickered, he concentrated his mind, raised his head and looked up at the sky, with a hint of awe in his eyes. Huh! Suddenly, the vision of heaven and earth disappeared and calm returned. The sky is still blue, the sun shines on the earth, and the white clouds in the sky are misty, fresh, and fragrant, which is an auspicious sign. Everyone in Halloween Mountain also recovered from the shock. But this time, no one laughed at the Supreme Leader. Everyone looked at him with eyes full of envy and jealousy. The Supreme Leader is really hugging a big thick leg. As expected of the headmaster of one of the four holy lands, he actually initiated the Great Dao Oath directly. This decisiveness is indeed beyond the reach of others. Oh, if only we had such courage. Yes, if I have the opportunity to follow the Lord of Qin, I would be willing to pay any price. It's a pity that our strength and status are not enough. Even if we swear the oath of the Great Road, I guess the Lord of Great Qin will not pay attention to us. He must be the Supreme Leader. Although he looks young on the outside, he is still an old ginger after all. Alas! Don't talk nonsense, be careful of the trouble coming from your mouth. If the leader hears it, you will definitely not live long. Everyone was talking and looking at the Supreme Leader with envy, jealousy, and hatred. They practice hard and rack their brains, just to be able to enter a more powerful place to practice. The most powerful force in the human race right now is undoubtedly Da Qin. The Lord of Great Qin has become the leader of the human race, with a lofty status and powerful strength. As long as you follow him, the resources you obtain will be several times, 10 times, or even dozens of times what you are now. Now the Supreme Leader has hugged this golden thigh without any effort, which is really enviable to them. At this time, The supreme leader turned around and glanced around with an indifferent gaze, immediately frightening everyone into silence. Then he looked at the disciples of the Taizhang religion, and his voice also sounded at the same time, "My oath has been completed, and you are all my disciples. From now on, we will share the glory, disgrace, and adversity with the great Qin." His voice was sonorous and powerful, and his words spread clearly throughout the Taizhang mountain. At this moment, everyone on Halloween Mountain heard it clearly. "Disciple, I obey." All the disciples of the supreme religion agreed in unison with loud voices. Then, they all knelt on the ground. "See your Majesty." All the disciples bowed their heads in respectful voices. At this moment, the disciples of the supreme religion changed their title to Qin Mu to Your Majesty. The supreme leader also breathed a sigh of relief. Although he had promised Qin Mu before, he was still a little uneasy, worried that these disciples were too arrogant. But now it seems that he was worried for nothing. These disciples are all smart people, and they immediately understand what they should and shouldn't do, instead of being arrogant just because they have some strength, like some idiots. Yet Qin Mu hummed lightly, and then his eyes fell on the supreme leader, half smiling but not smiling. "I didn't expect that the leader would be such a talented person who understands current affairs. I thought that those who practice Taizhang and forget their emotions are very old-fashioned. They are not light on oil and salt. They give up everything in pursuit of the ultimate power and do not eat fireworks." Before coming here, Qin Mu really regarded the supreme sect as the most difficult enemy to deal with. After all, this holy land claims to practice the Tao of forgetfulness, not only because they pursue eternity, but also because the skill requires ruthlessness and abandoning all distracting thoughts, otherwise they will be haunted by inner demons and fall into the devil's path. However, now it seems that he thought too much and misunderstood the supreme leader. But since the other party is so cooperative, then you should save face for him. Haha, this is natural. The purpose of cultivating Taizhang Wangqing Dao is to pursue power and give up everything. But if you don't have enough strength, everything is empty talk. The supreme leader smiled slightly, and then continued, "Your Majesty, we are indeed cultivating the supreme master, but it does not mean that we have no IQ. What do you think?" "Haha, I like smart people, and I hope we can cooperate happily." Qin Mu showed a smile. "Your Majesty, you're welcome. It's an honor for us to be at Your Majesty's side." Having said this, the supreme leader's face became serious, and he stared at Qin Mu with burning eyes. "Please forgive me for asking. I wonder if Your Majesty is already just a hair away from the realm of the great emperor." "Not bad," Qin Mu admitted frankly. "As expected." After receiving the exact answer, the supreme leader sighed inwardly. He had already made a guess when he saw Qin Mu take action just now. Now that it has been confirmed, it has further strengthened his thoughts. Qin Mu was able to display such a terrifying offensive technique, which clearly meant he had reached the threshold of the realm of the great emperor. "I wonder if Your Majesty is ready to attack the realm of the great emperor," the supreme leader asked again. "Absolutely," Qin Mu nodded, not hiding anything. In fact, he is ready to sprint to the realm of the great emperor. He had already accumulated a huge amount of energy in his body, and he was just short of finishing. It's just because the difficulty for him to break through is much greater than that of other great emperors. He must look for opportunities or have other opportunities to successfully enter the realm of the great emperor. Both are indispensable. Congratulations to Your Majesty for taking the most critical step." The supreme leader took a deep breath, suppressed his excitement, and slowly uttered 3 words in a solemn tone: "In the future, we will only follow the lead of De Qin, and we will not dare to violate it in the slightest. He is an extremely sensible person who knows what to do and what not to do." "Well, I believe you." Qin Mu nodded lightly. "Then I would also like to boldly remind Your Majesty that the realm of the great emperor is extremely dangerous, and you can die if you are not careful. Your Majesty must be careful." The master of the supreme religion said earnestly. Don't worry, Qin Mu nodded, I won't be reckless. Seeing this, the supreme leader was relieved. He was really worried that Qin Mu would be too impatient and go crazy, which would be troublesome. Although Qin Mu was tyrannical and had unparalleled combat prowess, he was still too young and his foundation was still shallow. It is too dangerous to reach the realm of the great emperor in a short period of time. He still hoped that Qin Mu would play steadily and try to break through as slowly as possible. After all, Qin Mu is too young. No one can guarantee that he will not suffer disaster and die at the critical moment when he breaks through to the realm of the great emperor. The supreme leader didn't want Qin Mu to be in danger just after he took the vow of greatness. He is still waiting for Qin Mu to lead the rise of the human race and let the entire world sink at the feet of the human race. Qin Mu is a man who has the potential to achieve this great feat. It would be a pity if he died because of the failure to attack the great emperor. However, he couldn't help with this kind of thing. The only thing he could do was to remind Qin Mu. In this case, I wish your majesty a successful victory, successfully breaking through to the realm of the great emperor, unifying the 9 states, and shaking the world. The supreme master cupped his hands and said with a smile, by then, our supreme master will also be famous far and wide because of his majesty's presence. Then I would like to thank the leader for his kind words. Qin Mu nodded. Then he glanced at the remaining people and asked, how many disciples are there in total in the supreme religion? Hearing this, the supreme leader was stunned. He looked at Qin Mu in surprise. Does your majesty want to form an army? Exactly. Qin Mu made no secret of it. After dealing with the remaining forces, I will leave Deoxuan territory and go to the Paradise territory to have a look. So I plan to let the Taishang Jiao manage the territory of Deoxuan territory for me first. What do you think? Your Majesty, don't worry, the Supreme Master will naturally be willing to help, the Supreme Master immediately agreed. For the Supreme Master, this matter was like a huge pie hitting his head. He agreed directly without thinking at all. As for the control of Deoxuan domain, Taishang Jiao has no interest at all. He had already sworn to God that he would surrender to Qin Mu and be loyal to Great Qin forever and ever, so how could he covet these things? Very good, I will now appoint the Supreme Sect as the protector of the Deoxuan territory, responsible for managing all matters of all sizes in the Deoxuan territory, and select a few deputy leaders to assist. Qin Mu paused for a moment, and then continued, while I am away, the leader will temporarily take over the duties of protector. I will reward you when I return. According to the order, the supreme leader replied in a low voice with a humble expression. He knew very well that this was not just a transaction, but also an investment. The results of investment are often directly proportional to the harvest. And now he won the bet. The harvest is naturally extremely rich. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 535. Okay, then please step back. Qin Mu waved his hand. The supreme leader bowed and stepped back, without stopping for a moment. He felt very comfortable and the investment this time was definitely worth it. Not only did it close the relationship with the Qin dynasty, but it also gained a continent. Most importantly, he also received an enlightenment leaf. This kind of opportunity is absolutely mouth-watering. But the cost is not without it. The fragments of the Taishang sect's 9 heavens divine record, the taking mirror, and even the Taishang sect's great disciple himself were all taken away by Qin Mu. This price is not small. It can be called a loss of blood. But compared to the long run, it's completely insignificant. Moreover, the supreme leader doesn't think he will lose money. After all, the current strength displayed by the great Qin dynasty is strong enough, even surpassing the top sects that once had great emperors, and surpassing countless great religions. As Qin Mu, the emperor destined to rule the world in the future would also protect the supreme religion. Such a deal is a steal. Moreover, he had already sworn an oath to be loyal to Qin Mu forever, and the cooperative relationship between them had become stronger from that time on. If Qin Mu had not broken his promise and one day unified the world and achieved hegemony, the Taizhang sect would naturally rise and become a giant in the continent. Not just the human race. Even if it only occupies one continent, it will be a huge help to the supreme religion. Leader. When the supreme leader returned, many senior leaders of the supreme religion gathered around him, their eyes shining brightly. What did the Lord of Qin talk to you about? There are high-level inquiries. Your Majesty asked me, the Supreme Master, to temporarily take over the duties of the protector of the Daoxuan territory and assist in the management of various affairs in the Daoxuan territory, the Supreme Leader said. Hearing this, everyone's expressions changed. If this is really the case, I'm afraid the Supreme Sect will really take off. Many senior members of the Taishang Jiao were talking about it, and they all looked excited. If Qin Mu can successfully advance to the realm of the Great Emperor, they will surely rise with the rising tide, and their future cultivation path will be smoother. In this way, the future development potential of Taishang Jiao will become unprecedentedly strong. Especially when the sect leaders of the other three holy places have been deposed, the supreme religion has an even greater advantage. But some people are happy and some are sad. They are happy that they can finally intervene in the affairs of Daoxuan realm, but they are worried that their cultivation level cannot keep up and it is difficult to convince the public. Master, why don't you ask a few supreme elders to take action? Someone suggested. With their cultivation, there will be no problem in managing the Daoxuan domain. The supreme leader shook his head and refused. It's inappropriate. He explained, since your Majesty has entrusted the supreme religion with the position of temporary protector, it means that you believe in the supreme religion's ability. If someone from the supreme religion interferes, your Majesty will definitely be dissatisfied. That would be counterproductive. Besides, this matter is also a training for the Supreme Master. Your Majesty means that I, the Supreme Master, should train a group of younger generations. This is also a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me, the Supreme Master. If I miss it, there may be no next time. Hearing the Supreme Leader's words, the others all looked astonished. Yeah, they almost missed that detail. This is a good opportunity to train as a disciple of the Supreme Religion. Once an outstanding disciple appears in Taishang Jiao, he will definitely be favored by Qin Mu. Even if he does not provide further support, it will be great to give him skills, treasures, pills and the like. Although Taishang Jiao has a profound foundation and a long inheritance, there are not many disciples who have real potential and are worthy of training. After all, this road is too difficult to walk. What is needed is resources, talent, and luck. Otherwise, it would be difficult to achieve such achievements. What the leader said is absolutely true. Someone agreed and nodded. In this way, the supreme religion will surely rise rapidly, and by then our supreme religion will be completely transformed. That's right. This is the prosperous age of our supreme religion. This kind of opportunity is rare. If you miss it, you won't get it again. Everyone was extremely excited and filled with emotions. This is a rare opportunity that must not be missed. The Supreme Leader smiled and nodded, then changed the subject and said, by the way, are there any new disciples in the sect? Reporting to the leader, during this period, our Supreme Sect has recruited a total of 2,000 disciples. They are all children who have just started, but their qualifications are not bad and they can be reused, an elder said respectfully. The Taishang Jiao recruits disciples and has never been restricted by gender. Anyone with qualifications can join. There are also many women in the supreme religion. Therefore, Taishang Jiao will recruit a group of female disciples every 5 years. These female disciples, regardless of appearance or qualifications, all belong to the superior vehicle. They are the seeds of the supreme sect and the core of the future. However, compared to other major holy places, the number of disciples recruited by the Taishangjiao is relatively small. Because the requirements for recruiting disciples are very high. Those with insufficient congenital qualifications will be directly eliminated or given up. All disciples who can enter the Taishang sect have amazing talents. The leader of the supreme religion muttered, 2,000 disciples are not enough. Although our supreme religion does not need to compete for territory, if we want to govern the Daoxuan domain, we will inevitably conflict with foreign enemies. Although these 2,000 disciples are not weak, they are still early in their growth and require a lot of hard work. I plan to recruit 3,000 more disciples. Yes, leader, the elder responded. The supreme leader nodded. In addition, in the future, for those who have contributed to the sect, their cultivation resources can be allocated in proportion to the inner disciples. This time our goal is to cultivate a sufficient number of talented disciples. We cannot waste this opportunity. Understand? As you command, leader, everyone solemnly promised, with serious expressions on their faces, obviously knowing the importance of this matter. At this time, Ji Tianming walked over with a strange look on his face. Master, did you really sell me out? He looked at the supreme leader and said bitterly, isn't this inappropriate? The supreme leader glanced at Ji Tianming and sighed, I have no choice but to be a teacher. Ji Tianming opened his thin lips, but didn't know how to speak. Although he wanted to follow Qin Mu to see the higher scenery, the thought of being betrayed by his master made him feel uncomfortable and felt weird. Alas, how can I be willing to do such a thing as a master? The supreme leader sighed quietly, as if he had aged many years in an instant. Ji Tianming shook his head, fortunately, I am willing, otherwise it depends on what you do. The supreme leader glared at Ji Tianming and groaned, of course I, the supreme leader, will not be afraid. The worst I can do is fight to the death. Ji Tianming was too lazy to argue with him and asked straight to the point, so, where am I going now? Let's go to His Majesty for the time being. Later, I will take you back as my teacher. Bring him back. Ji Tianming rolled his eyes, I won't come back. After saying this, he turned around and left, his posture extremely chic, and even his hair exuded a sense of freedom and ease. Alas! The supreme leader sighed again, looking at Ji Tianming's leaving figure apologetically, Qin Mu should have what you want, and this must be the reason why you agreed. Bar. But when he thought about the secret that Ji Tianming carried, the supreme leader still felt a headache. I hope Qin Mu hasn't figured out his secret yet. The supreme leader murmured to himself. But as soon as the idea came to him, he realized something was wrong. If Qin Mu didn't see Ji Tianming's secret, why did he have to let Ji Tianming come to him? Could it be? The supreme leader's pupils shrank suddenly, and the hairs all over his body stood on end. A chill suddenly rose in his heart, and an idea came to his mind. No wonder, it turns out he has noticed it a long time ago. The supreme leader looked solemn and clenched his hands into fists. After a long time, he let go of his hands and an indifferent smile appeared on his lips. That's all, let everything take its course. The supreme leader closed his eyes and opened them again. His eyes became firm and full of confidence. No matter whether Qin Mu saw Ji Tianming's identity or not. At least this time, the Supreme Master deserves it. If it were in the past, even if it was for Ji Tianming, the leader of the Supreme Religion would not dare to make fun of the future and life of the entire Supreme Religion. After all, he is the most aware of the power of alien races, which are existences that are difficult for humans to contend with. But now, the Supreme Religion has a powerful backer. The Supreme Religion leader is full of confidence and is not afraid of anything. At this moment, the Supreme Leader slowly stood up, glanced at everyone present, and announced loudly, during this period, you will do your best to collect information, select suitable disciples as soon as possible, and establish a foundation for the sect. Yes, everyone shouted in unison. After the supreme leader left, Qin Mu closed his eyes and realized the realm of the great emperor. The conquests and fighting during this period of time have made his foundation stronger. Perhaps he only needs to practice quietly for a period of time before he can successfully break through to the realm of the great emperor. Of course, it is not that easy to break through to the realm of the great emperor, otherwise there would not be very few powerful emperor-level people in this world. Suddenly, Qin Mu's heart trembled slightly. He felt a familiar wave. It belonged to Ji Tianming, and it was the supreme leader who sent him out. Qin Mu raised the corners of his mouth slightly. He was really interested in Ji Tianming, otherwise he wouldn't have spent so much effort to recruit him from the Taishang Jiao. But now Qin Mu has no time to talk to Ji Tianming, he has more important things to do. Although the Qingtian Temple, Wangxiang Shrine, and the sect masters of Weiha have just been dealt with, this does not mean that the trouble has been solved. On the contrary, it is even more troublesome. Because of Qin Mu's actions, the three major sects were completely offended. The three major forces will definitely not give up. However, Qin Mu is not worried about these troubles at all. The three major forces have not been taken seriously by him yet. Not to mention that he now possesses a terrifying combat power comparable to that of the great emperor. The power in his hands alone is not something that just a few sects can despise. Qin Mu took out a jade talisman and injected it with spiritual power. The jade talisman shone brightly. Soon, a soft female voice came from the jade talisman, "Your Majesty." The sound is charming and sweet, like the cry of an oriole, which makes people feel relaxed and happy, and makes their bones soft. "How is the situation?" Qin Mu asked calmly. The other end of the jade talisman was silent for a moment, and then Xuanhuan's gentle and pleasant voice sounded, "It's ready. Please rest assured, Your Majesty, I will do my best to help Your Majesty achieve his long-cherished wish." When her voice fell, Qin Mu suddenly felt his blood boiling. Qin Mu took a deep breath, suppressed his restless mood, and said in a deep voice, "In this case, I will attack Weiha, Wangxiang Palace, and Qingtian Temple at the same time tomorrow." His voice was cold and indifferent, which made people palpitate. "As ordered," Xuanhuan whispered in a soft voice, "Your Majesty, then I will take my leave first, and I will look forward to your arrival tomorrow." "Well, thank you for your hard work." After hanging up the call, Qin Mu's mood gradually calmed down. No matter what, he will eventually make enemies with these forces. In this case, it is better to do it drastically. This time, the opposition forces of the three major sects of Qingtian Temple, Wangxiang Palace, and Weiha will be completely eliminated. This is the most fundamental way to eliminate future troubles. As for those minions, they are nothing to be feared, and there is no rush to keep them and slowly deal with them. In fact, he originally only wanted to deal with Qingtian Temple to kill a chicken to scare the monkeys, but the facts show that he thought a little too simply. Wangxiang Palace and Weiha will not compromise so easily, even after he has shown his extremely strong strength. In this case, he might as well solve it all at once. In this case, just act according to the plan to prevent future troubles. Qin Mu narrowed his eyes, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. After confirming the plan for tomorrow, Qin Mu turned his head and looked at the monks in Wanzhong Mountain. These monks can be said to be the strongest and most talented new generation of the human race. As long as they are mastered, it is like grasping the lifeline of the human race for decades or even hundreds of years in the future. Qin Mu's eyes swept across the faces of each monk, and his eyes became sharper and sharper. "Your Majesty! Your Majesty! Greetings, Your Majesty!" These monks were shivering with cold air when they were looked at by Qin Mu, and they knelt on the ground one after another. They were in a state of panic, feeling that something bad was going to happen. Qin Mu suddenly smiled, and his voice spread throughout the audience, "Everyone, now there is a great opportunity for you. Everyone was stunned, and looked up at Qin Mu. For some reason, at this moment, their hearts began to beat violently, and breathing became difficult. They felt that something big was going to happen, but they couldn't figure it out, and didn't know what benefits this would bring to them. This feeling was wonderful, but also dangerous. Qin Mu's eyes swept across the audience, and then he waved his right hand, and streams of light flew out, turning into countless jade bottles suspended in the air, releasing a rich fragrance. Is this a magic pill? Smelling this refreshing medicinal fragrance, the monks present suddenly became excited. However, this is just the beginning. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 536. Then, Qin Mu waved his sleeves again, and a large number of golden light spots appeared. These golden light spots exuded rich spiritual energy, and they drifted like raindrops, filling the sky above Wanzhong Mountain. The quality of these pills is far higher than that of ordinary spiritual pills. Each one exudes an alluring fragrance, which makes people salivate. This is the Qi gathering pill. After eating it, the cultivation speed is 10 times faster than that of normal cultivators. This is the Yang Yuan pill, which can nourish the muscles and bones and improve the qualifications. This is the Quanchum pill, which can cleanse the body, transform the body, and make the body tough and strong. This is the Shaping Soul pill. If you die, if the soul does not disappear, it can be preserved for 3 days. This is the Xuanhuan pill. This is the Zhuyang pill. This is the diamond liquid for tempering the body. This is. Everyone's eyes were wide open, revealing disbelief. These are the treasures they dream of. If they can take out one, it will be enough to cause a sensation, let alone all of them. Moreover, Qin Mu actually took out so many, each of which was a treasure, and the price was ridiculously expensive. Gudong. Many cultivators swallowed hard, looking at the various elixirs in the void with eagerness. However, no one dared to reach out to take them. Even though Qin Mu had just said that these were opportunities for them, they still didn't dare to touch them. After all, they didn't do anything, why did Qin Mu give them things for free? Although they were eager to take them, no one dared to move, and quietly waited for Qin Mu to give orders. Soon, these elixirs piled up into a small hill, and the whole mountain became bright. But it was still not over. Qin Mu made 2 more hand gestures, and a series of array patterns emerged. I saw weapons flashing with precious light appearing one by one, floating in the air. These weapons were made of different materials, different grades, and strange shapes. There were swords, spears, swords, halberds, axes, hooks, and forks, and even a dog chain. But the only thing in common is that they are all very sharp, with a cold luster, and the breath they exude is extremely terrifying. They are all top-grade spiritual weapons. This scene made everyone's eyes pop out and couldn't help swallowing saliva. These are top-level weapons. Any one of them is enough to cause bloody storms in the outside world. But here, they are piled up there casually like cabbages. This is really too extravagant. This is. Suddenly, a monk shouted in doubt, his eyes wide open, shocked. Everyone looked in his direction and was immediately shocked. The weapon pointed by the monk was a long sword, with a narrow and slender sword body, a concave and convex sword spine, like a swimming dragon, and mysterious runes all over the body. It is obvious that it is not an ordinary thing. These runes are faintly outlined into the shape of a cloud, making the sword look mysterious and powerful. Hiss. The sound of gasping for air rang out. Everyone's eyes were focused on the sword, their eyes were filled with greed and passion. Holy weapon. There is no doubt that this sword is a holy weapon, and it is of a very high grade. For most cultivators, they may never own a holy weapon in their lifetime. Because holy weapons are rare, each one has unfathomable power. Even disciples of the immortal sect rarely own holy weapons. Unless they are of noble status or have amazing talents, there is almost no hope of obtaining a holy weapon. But now, any weapon taken out here is a holy weapon. They can't imagine how deep Xuanhuan's background is. My God, His Majesty is so rich, everyone shouted wildly in their hearts, wishing they could rush forward to snatch the sword. Even if it is just a low-level holy weapon, it is a huge gift for many people, enough to make them ecstatic and scramble for it. But they are not stupid, they did not act rashly, but just looked at it with greedy eyes. Because the owner of these holy weapons is Xuanhuan. However, this is not over yet. Xuanhuan waved his sleeves, and another pile of things filled with pure spiritual energy and glittering fell from the sky, and soon piled up into a small mountain. Everyone's eyes were attracted again. Looking carefully, they found that those beads were actually spiritual stones. All the spiritual stones gathered together, densely packed, filling the area, looking crystal clear and shining. Everyone was shocked. How many spiritual stones are there? Millions. Tens of millions. Or more. They couldn't judge the exact number, but it was definitely more than tens of millions. Even the 4 holy places might not be able to take out so many spiritual stones casually. But Xuanhuan took them out, and looking at his calm appearance, it seemed to be just a trivial matter. At this time, hundreds of golden fruits were suspended in front of Xuanhuan. Looking at this fruit, all the cultivators present felt hot all over, and the blood in their bodies flowed faster, as if boiling. This is. All the monks stared at the fruit with dull eyes, their eyes were filled with passion and desire, their throats were extremely dry, and they uttered a few words with difficulty, the legendary Holy Spirit fruit. Wow! Hearing this, the other monks became excited and stared at the Holy Spirit fruit with burning eyes. The Holy Spirit fruit is a rare treasure of heaven and earth, with unpredictable power. After taking it, it can not only transform people, but also improve their cultivation. But the most important thing is that this is a holy medicine that can increase lifespan. After taking it, it can increase lifespan by 500 years. 500 years may not be considered long in the eyes of saints with profound cultivation, but for ordinary practitioners, it is precious. Especially after reaching the realm of Zhang, the difficulty of breaking through will increase exponentially. It is as difficult as ascending to heaven to survive the shackles of time. And these 500 years have given these cultivators who have no hope of breaking through some hope. There was a rumor in Xuanhuan domain that if you eat the Holy Spirit fruit, there is a certain probability of breaking through to the peak of the 9th heaven of Zhang. It's a pity that the Holy Spirit fruit only exists in rumors and rarely appears. Even if it does, it is snatched away by those powerful cultivators, so this news is slowly annihilated. Who knew that today, I would see so many Holy Spirit fruits here? In an instant, everyone's breathing became rapid, staring at the Holy Spirit fruit, as if it was about to spit out flames. Everyone, since you are willing to follow me, I naturally cannot treat you unfairly. Xuanhuan glanced at everyone and said, these treasures are for you to choose, just take whatever you want. Xuanhuan smiled lightly, with a generous attitude. After the words fell, everyone was stunned, with incredible expressions on their faces. Then, all the cultivators trembled with excitement, almost jumped up, their hearts pounding, their heads buzzing, and their thoughts in chaos. All these treasures belong to them. Xuanhuan was so generous. For a moment, everyone's hearts were in turmoil, unable to suppress their excitement, their eyes turned red, and their breathing became heavy. This is the Holy Spirit fruit. A 500-year-old Holy Spirit fruit is much more effective than any elixir. I've always wanted a marrow cleansing pill to improve my qualifications, but I didn't expect to finally find it today. With these treasures, I can break through to the Dao-slaying realm. Warm tips: if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to let us know. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. Yes, although it is only 500 years old, I believe there is definitely a chance to enter the Saint Realm. Ha ha ha. So many treasures. We've made a fortune. We're going to rise. Everyone cheered excitedly, and the entire Xuanhuan mountain fell into a boiling state. Both male and female monks were extremely excited. Your Majesty is wise. We swear to follow your Majesty until death, serve you like dogs and horses, and never dare to disobey your Majesty's orders. Everyone was extremely excited, staring at the treasures with burning eyes, and their breathing began to become heavy. These holy artifacts, spiritual stones, and elixirs are extremely tempting to them. At the same time, their value is beyond imagination, and any one of them can be sold at an astonishing price. These are real treasures. Your Majesty, are you sure all these treasures belong to us? Finally, someone couldn't bear it anymore and asked Qin Mu. After all, these treasures are too rich. If they don't confirm clearly, I'm afraid they won't sleep well. Such a heavy favor makes them feel uneasy. Qin Mu looked at these greedy faces, and his mouth curled up slightly. He naturally knew what these people were thinking. Of course, as long as you are loyal to Dakin and make contributions to Dakin, I will naturally reward you. Qin Mu nodded and said, showing a magnanimous look. Thank you, Your Majesty, for the reward. We will follow the Qin dynasty until our death, even if it means sacrificing our lives. Please rest assured, Your Majesty, we will do our best and serve the Qin dynasty until our death. A group of monks immediately bowed down, their voices resounding throughout the valley. Qin Mu nodded with a smile, but these rewards will not be given out now. Tomorrow, I will completely eradicate Qingtian Temple, Wangxiang Palace, and Huiaha, and I still need your help. When the war is won, I will definitely reward you according to your merits. Boom. When this sentence fell, the whole valley exploded. Everyone stared with wide eyes, showing a horrified expression. Your Majesty, it's not easy to eradicate Huiaha and Qingtian Temple. The three sects are united and powerful. It's probably difficult for us to succeed alone, right? Our strength is not top-notch. Many cultivators said worriedly that this matter was too risky and too risky. Once they failed, they would suffer endless revenge from the three sects. They couldn't afford it. Hee, don't worry. Seeing this, Qin Mu raised his mouth slightly. If even these three sects can't be solved, how can Dakin dare to dominate the 9 regions of the human race? Hearing this, everyone fell into silence. What Dakin did during this period of time had already shocked them and convinced them. They all knew that Dakin would never do anything without confidence. Since Qin Mu was sure to solve the three sects, there should be no problem. It's just, they still felt something was wrong in their hearts. After all, Huiaha and Qingtian Temple are both famous sects with strong strength, far exceeding ordinary sects and families. No matter how powerful the Qin dynasty is, it would be extremely difficult to completely eradicate the three factions. After all, these forces are all controlled by old monsters, so how can they be wiped out just by saying so? However, Qin Mu obviously guessed their thoughts and smiled lightly. Everyone, this matter is very important. If you are not careful, it is very likely to lead to the decline of national fortune and the boiling of public resentment, which is not in line with the original intention of the development of Dakin. I also know that you are worried, and I understand your concerns, but you can rest assured. I have already prepared a backup plan. Whether this matter succeeds or not, Dakin will stand at the top of the 9 states, and no one can shake it. Qin Mu's eyes were bright and full of confidence, which made everyone's hearts shake violently. Yes, Dakin, which can take out so many treasures, has a foundation and strength that is beyond their imagination. Maybe it can really destroy the 3 holy places easily. If so, then they may be able to pick up a loophole. With the foundation of the 3 holy places, any leaks will be enough for them to use. Moreover, this is the merit of following the dragon, and it is only natural for them to have more rewards afterwards. Thinking of this, many cultivators' eyes lit up. From this point of view, this matter is not a disaster, but an opportunity. As for the danger, they subconsciously ignored it. Because they only regarded themselves as helpers, and the main force on the battlefield should be the Qin army. As for help, to put it nicely, it is helpers, to put it bluntly, it is to fish in troubled waters, and to see that the situation is not right, just run away. Moreover, how can there be no danger in the world of cultivation to fight for opportunities? Even if you explore the secret realm, you may pay the price of your life. Now this little danger is nothing. As I said, risk and return are proportional. The bigger the wind and waves, the more expensive the fish. Although they are not fishmongers, they are very clear about this principle. I will follow your Majesty's order, everyone replied respectfully. Qin Mu smiled and said, but before that, you must leave your original sect, join Dakin, and become a member of Dakin to get these rewards. When these words came out, everyone's face changed instantly. They knew it. It must not be that simple, and it was as they expected. Qin Mu's idea was to make them leave their original sect and join Dakin. But before they could say anything, Qin Mu's voice sounded again. Of course, I won't force you. If you are willing to join, I will naturally welcome you. If you don't want to, it doesn't matter. Everything is up to you to decide. Hearing this, everyone's hearts were put back. Fortunately, the Lord of Dakin was quite righteous and did not force them. So a polarized scene appeared. One group of people wanted to join Dakin, and the other group was unwilling to leave their original sect. Qin Mu looked at those indifferent people, sneered, and had already made up his mind. The reason why he took out these treasures first was not to use both kindness and force, nor to tempt them to join Dakin, but to select them. In the battle tomorrow, he will send these people to the front line and transfer those monks who joined Dakin to the rear. After several rounds of selection, those who are loyal to Dakin will be more loyal, and those monks who are not loyal will choose to join Dakin under the threat of death. By then, Dakin will truly integrate the power of the human race and unify the 9 regions. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Leng Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 537. Soon, all the people who were willing to join Qin had been selected, accounting for about 70% of the total number. These monks are both male and female, the oldest is nearly 1,000 years old, and the youngest is only in his 20s or 30s, but they have strong auras, and they are all extremely talented beings. After all, the monks who can come to the celebration are all extremely talented. They are the best in their own sects, and even the weak ones cannot be found. The remaining people hesitated again and again, and finally chose to stay in their original sect. They are all disciples who value training within their respective sections. If they defect like this, it will have a huge impact on themselves. They dare not gamble and are unwilling to gamble. And because their masters were all around them, these people were unwilling to betray their original sect and join the unfamiliar organization of Qin. Qin Mu glanced at these people indifferently, firmly remembering their appearance, and then said loudly, "Everyone, tomorrow is the day of the decisive battle. I hope you can bring me a surprise." "Yes, Your Majesty." Hearing this, everyone responded with excitement, with excited expressions on their faces. Well, except for the heads or elders of the major sects who are staying, the rest should go down and have a good rest. Tomorrow's battle will be won in one fell swoop. Qin Mu waved his hand. After hearing this, Everyone immediately left, and only those monks who had the most say in the sect remained. These people have basically reached the level of saints, and several of them have even reached the level of the pinnacle of saints, and are truly extremely powerful. However, these people were still respectful in front of Qin and did not dare to show any slights. After the others had left, Qin looked at them and asked, "Everyone, do you have any thoughts on this action?" "Your Majesty, I believe that since we have chosen Great Qin, we must fulfill our duties." A man in white stood up and said solemnly, "I suggest that I lead an elite team to lurk into the Wangxiang Divine Palace." "Oh," Qin raised his eyebrows and said with interest, "Continue." "According to our information, there are 9 mountain gates in the Vientiane Palace. Each mountain gate is protected by a formation, making it difficult for outsiders to enter. However, there are no restrictions inside the Vientiane Palace. As long as the formation is destroyed, one can easily enter. So I suggest that we sneak into a mountain gate first, and then attack other mountain gates after opening the mountain gate. This cycle continues until we completely control the Vientiane Palace. And the trump card in His Majesty's hand is enough to defeat the mountain-protecting formation of the Wangxiang Shrine. When the time comes, we will take advantage of the chaos and attack the enemy unprepared. I believe that the Wangxiang Shrine will definitely be unable to withstand His Majesty's thunderous strike. Even if they have a quasi-emperor sitting in charge, they will not be able to defeat the enemy. I can't resist the trump card in His Majesty's hand." "I second the proposal," another person said. "Your Majesty, I also agree." Qin smiled and said nothing, quietly watching these people discuss how to attack the Wangxiang Palace. These people are indeed strong, but they have been pampered for too long, have not experienced combat for too long, and lack real experience. These plans may sound good to others, but to Qin ears, they are full of loopholes. Qin already knew about this Vientiane Palace and was fully prepared. According to the information passed by Chu Qianyue, there is an ancient spiritual treasure in this Wangxiang Shrine, called the Wangxiang Pearl, which is the spiritual treasure of the Wangxiang Shrine. And this spiritual treasure has been refined extremely powerfully by successive palace masters of the Wangxiang Palace, and some of its functions can even be compared with ordinary quasi-immortal weapons, which shows how powerful it is. The effect of the Wangxiang Pearl is very mysterious. It can not only be used to trap enemies, but can also summon thousands of spiritual beasts for attack and defense. If trapped inside, even the quasi-emperor may not be able to escape. Moreover, the material of the Wangxiang Pearl itself is extremely hard, and even quasi-immortal weapons cannot be damaged at all. It can resist the attacks of any monks and monsters in the quasi-immortal realm. Therefore, even in ancient times, it was a very precious treasure. Unfortunately, it fell into the hands of the Wangxiang Palace and only played a small role. However, it was still regarded as one of the spiritual treasures of the town. The so-called infiltration is just a joke. If you are not careful, you will be caught in the urn of the Vientiane Palace. Qin looked at the man in white quietly and said with a smile, "Yes, he is worthy of being the master of Baishuan sword sect, and he is quite suitable to be a counselor." "Then, I will go and make arrangements." Upon hearing the compliment, a look of excitement appeared on the face of the man in white, and he quickly bowed. Qin couldn't help rolling his eyes when he heard this. This guy really doesn't understand good words. "Humph, this idiot," another burly man wearing a fiery red shirt snorted coldly. "What, you think it's inappropriate?" Qin glanced at him. The burly man raised his fists and said seriously, "Reporting to your Majesty, I think the method he said is completely unrealistic." "Oh? What do you say?" "Your Majesty, although your strength is unpredictable and your methods are endless, the Wangxiang Palace is not an ordinary section. There are several quasi-emperor level ancestors sitting in it. These old monsters cannot come out in seclusion on weekdays, but only when they encounter a crisis. Only then can I get out of seclusion. If we rush forward rashly to attack, Wouldn't we risk death? Besides, there are countless formations arranged at the gate of the Vientiane Palace. It is simply wishful thinking to sneak in quietly. What's more, there is a mysterious power in the Vientiane Palace, and it is impossible to avoid it. The burly man said decisively. Hearing this, a look of solemnity flashed across the faces of the others, obviously feeling that what he said was true. Then tell me your solution. Qin Mu nodded and looked at him. The burly man was stunned, obviously not expecting Qin Mu not to refute him. However, he still said, Your Majesty, this plan is not without merit, but it will require a huge price, and we don't know what quasi-emperor level old monsters are in the Vientiane Palace. If we act rashly, we will easily be attacked, so Wei Chen believes that if we don't break out from the outside, there will be only one way left. After saying that, he stared at Qin Mu with burning eyes, as if waiting for his answer. Which way? Qin Mu raised his eyebrows and asked with interest. Others also cast their gaze over, and they were also puzzled as to how to solve this problem. Your Majesty, Wei Chen suggested that we sneak in from the underground. Underground? Qin Mu looked surprised. That's right, only underground will not attract attention. In the end, you can enter the core area of the palace without anyone noticing and find the all-seeing pearl, the burly man said solemnly, with a strong confidence in his tone. Hearing this, everyone looked at him in surprise. Underground? What kind of solution is this? Your Majesty, please look. As if aware of everyone's doubts, he stretched out his palm, and a dark vortex appeared in his palm. The vortex rotates slowly, exuding a strange and gloomy atmosphere, which makes people feel creepy. As the vortex turned faster and faster, the entire space became blurred and distorted. Everyone's pupils shrank suddenly, and this fluctuation made them feel afraid. Is this the power of space? Qin Mu narrowed his eyes. The burly man nodded and said, Yes, to be honest with you, Your Majesty, our Xiankong clan is good at earth and space magic, and we have a lot of research on escape techniques. We can use escape techniques to sneak into the ground. We should be able to guarantee safety and not be discovered. The burly man said again. As he spoke, he raised his hand and a jade talisman flew into the air. The jade talisman rose in the storm and instantly became the size of 100 feet. The burly man formed a seal with his hands, and a series of obscure and complicated lines emerged out of thin air and merged into the jade talisman. Suddenly the jade talisman's light surged, shaking violently as if it were alive. Then wisps of grey mist visible to the naked eye floated out, covering the entire palace and wrapping them in it. Buzzing. The grey mist surged and gradually formed into a spherical shape, covering the temple and isolating the aura of heaven and earth outside. After doing all this, the burly man sighed softly and took his hand back. This is my family's special hidden escape technique. It can shield the aura and cover up traces. Even if the quasi-emperor comes in person, he will not be able to detect the situation here. Your Majesty, don't worry. Unless there are special perception skills or spiritual scanning in the Vientiane Palace, no one can detect us, the burly man said solemnly. The gazes that everyone looked at him suddenly became hot. Originally, they were still worried that they would be in danger if they were discovered. But who would have thought that a burly man could possess such a powerful escape technique? It would be much safer now. Qin Mu also looked at this person in surprise. It seemed that these people were really talented, even with such weird escape skills. It is indeed a grand celebration that includes most of the forces of the human race. Each of these people will probably be enough to shock one party. Since you are so sure, I will give you a chance to make a contribution. If you dare to lie to me, I will definitely kill all 9 of your tribes, Qin Mu said lightly. Hearing this, the burly man was so frightened that he knelt on the ground and kowtowed quickly. I swear to follow your Majesty to the death, and I am willing to die for the Qin dynasty, and my liver and brain will be ruined. I hope you will remember what I said today and get up. Qin Mu nodded lightly. Thank you for your gift, Your Majesty. The burly man stood up. At this time, the group of monks who were unwilling to surrender to Great Qin stood up and expressed their opinions. Your Majesty, are you sure you want to attack on 3 fronts at the same time? It's too risky. That's right, if it's just a 2-line attack, that's fine. If it's a 3-line attack, if you're not careful, the entire army may be wiped out. Your Majesty, think twice. We sincerely ask Your Majesty to think twice before taking action, and never let a small thing lead to a big loss. Listening to these people's advice, Qin Mu had no expression on his face and just looked at them indifferently without saying a word. Seeing this scene, those people were immediately speechless, with their heads lowered, their bodies trembling, and they did not dare to make any more noise. What? Are you all scared? At this moment, Qin Mu's cold and majestic voice rang in everyone's ears, like a loud bell. Of course we are not afraid, we just think it is too risky, a white-haired old woman said tremblingly. She was the leader of this group of people. Yes, if something goes wrong, none of us will survive. Your Majesty is the overlord of the ages. How can the future emperor of humanity put himself in an irreversible situation just because of a moment of negligence? Your Majesty, think twice. Those people still insisted on their opinions. Although they said they were not afraid, they were still unavoidable in their hearts. After all, this matter is of great importance, and if you are not careful, everything will be lost. They really couldn't figure out why Qin Mu was so reckless and wanted to attack 3 holy places at the same time on 3 fronts. This was too much. Qin Mu smiled lightly, his eyes flashing with cold light, and said calmly, although you did not choose to join Great Qin, you are still my warriors of Great Qin. Since you are a soldier, you must obey orders as your duty. If you are afraid, I will not force you. You can leave. Hearing Qin Mu's words, many monks immediately showed their intention. If they can, they really want to leave. After all, although the treasure is good, you have to be alive to get it. Dozens of monks looked at each other, and then stood up together. Your Majesty, we are afraid, please forgive us, we will leave. Qin Mu did not stop them and let them leave, but the smile on his face became even more. The next moment, Zhang Luoshan and Ji Hongii and other women raised their knives and fell, blood splattered, heads rolled to the ground, and bodies fell to the ground with a bang, and their deaths were miserable. Before they died, the group of people's eyes were wide open, and they obviously didn't understand why this happened. For a moment, the atmosphere was quiet and a little weird, and everyone stared at the scene with wide eyes in horror. Qin Mu raised his eyes slightly, looked at those people, and smiled faintly. What did you say just now? I didn't hear it clearly, please say it again. Hearing Qin Mu's slightly playful words, everyone froze up, their faces turned pale in an instant, and they were so scared that their souls almost scattered. How could they dare to repeat what they just said? Hearing this, Qin Mu smiled, and his smile was very bright, but in their eyes, he was as hideous and terrifying as a demon. Your Majesty, spare my life. Someone knelt down and begged for mercy, and his body couldn't help trembling. Your Majesty, please don't kill us, we are also under pressure to not dare to participate in the war, please Your Majesty, please help. Qin Mu's eyes flashed a playful smile, but his face became colder, and he said, the soldiers of the Great Qin have never deserted in battle. Since you have surrendered to the Great Qin, you must follow the rules and iron laws of the Great Qin. If you violate them, you will be killed. Yes, 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 I understand. Those monks hurriedly agreed. They were not stupid, so they naturally saw Qin Mu's plan. This is to kill the chicken to scare the monkey, and completely cut off their thoughts of betraying Dakin. Alas, I hope Dakin can succeed, otherwise we will be really miserable. Someone couldn't help whispering. Hearing this, the companions around him also looked bitter and nodded in agreement. Now Dakin is so powerful that it is far beyond their imagination and is enough to crush their forces. They can basically not make any waves and can only choose to obey orders. We are willing to follow your majesty to death, even if we are torn to pieces, we will have no regrets. We will follow your majesty to death and are willing to go through fire and water for Dakin. Follow your majesty to death. Many monks shouted in unison, and the sound shook the sky and was extremely loud. Qin Mu's face gradually eased, and a gratified arc appeared at the corner of his mouth. He said, "Very good, since you are willing to follow me, I will naturally treat you well in the future." Then Qin Mu waved his hand and signaled them to retreat. Many monks breathed a sigh of relief, and hurriedly said goodbye to Qin Mu, leaving here without stopping, as if there was a flood and beast behind them. Qin Mu looked at the backs of these people and couldn't help shaking his head. If the human race is like this, when can it truly rise? At this time, Ji Hongii walked over slowly, put her white hands on Qin Mu's shoulders and gently kneaded them, and said with a chuckle, "That's why I need your majesty more." Qin Mu smiled slightly, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. "I can tolerate others, but the Qingtian temple and its ilk must be destroyed. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid." Author, Leng Mi and Buletin Leng. Chapter 538. The next day, countless monks gathered in the huge square outside Wanzhong Mountain, densely packed, at least 1,000,000 monks. They formed one army after another and were ready to go. The vast and majestic aura soared into the sky, reaching the sky, shocking people. Now that I think about it, it's still a little incredible. We came here to participate in the celebration, but we turned into an army of conquest. A monk sighed and said with a bit of laughter. Yes, it turned into an alliance army to attack Qingtian Temple overnight, and it was a 1,000,000-strong alliance army. It's incredible. Who made us choose to be loyal to Dakin? Since we chose to surrender, we should obey orders. Another person next to him patted his shoulder with emotion. Yes, this time, Qingtian Temple is destined to be doomed, someone echoed. Not only Qingtian Temple, but also Wangxiang Palace and Weiha, they can't escape the disaster. If it weren't for this celebration, we would never know that the human race has hidden such a peerless, ruthless person. Yes, your majesty is really a peerless, ruthless person. Throughout the history of the human race, there is no such a ruthless person. These people's eyes are focused on the distance, as if they can see the majestic figure through the layers of void. There is reverence in their eyes, this is the emperor in their hearts. Your majesty is really a great leader. If your majesty unifies the 9 regions, it will be a great merit, someone sighed. Your majesty is still young, but he has such courage and ambition. In the future, he will definitely lead our human race to rise and reign over the heavens again, another person said excitedly. We are very satisfied to be alive. If Dakin can unify the human race, it must be the most suitable country for us to live in. Another cultivator nodded with expectation on his face. The great Qin dynasty has finally risen. The day when the 4 holy places will be destroyed is not far away, and the pattern of the continent may change. In the square, countless people were talking about it, and many cultivators had different expressions. Some were nervous, worried, and excited, while others were looking forward to it, excited, and even eager to try. For them, this war will rewrite history. Once the great Qin dynasty succeeds, it will surely reach the top and become the only emperor of the human race, control the fate of hundreds of millions of lives, and intimidate the 8 wildernesses and 6 directions. Of course, if it fails, the great Qin dynasty will also fall into an irreversible situation and disappear in the long river of history. But no matter what, for most people, they are just ordinary cultivators and have no right to decide their own future. When the trend comes, all they can do is just follow the trend. They can't even protect themselves. This is cruel, but it is also true. As everyone was talking, Suddenly a monstrous majesty descended, and a terrible power swept over, making everyone's soul tremble, as if facing an immortal, and they could not raise the slightest thought of resistance. Boom! A series of violent trembling sounds came from afar, deafening, and the crowd's expression suddenly shook. The next moment, a series of dazzling beams of light broke through the darkness, tore through the space, and the speed was extremely fast, like lightning breaking through the sky, and descended on this sky. This is. Seeing this, the crowd was suddenly shocked. All the monks present raised their heads, staring at the dazzling beams in amazement, with shock on their faces. Under their eyes, they saw that the dazzling beams of light in the sky gathered together to form a gorgeous light column, penetrating the sky and the earth, and directly piercing the sky. The dazzling brilliance bloomed, dispelling the darkness and illuminating the entire Xuanhuan mountain, like a small sun, stinging people's eyes. At this moment, endless light enveloped most of the Xuanhuan city, making everyone dare not open their eyes. In this brilliant light column, everyone felt a destructive breath, as if something terrible was about to be born. What is this? Countless people showed doubts, but soon they knew. Boom! Accompanied by the deafening sound of thunder, the brilliant light column collapsed in an instant, turning into endless golden light, falling down. The next moment, the brilliant light suddenly converged and turned into a giant sword that stretched across the sky. The sword body was black and filled with a gloomy and cold feeling. At the tip of the sword, endless sharp edges swallowed and spit out, cutting through the void of heaven and earth, sharp and unmatched. Hiss! What a terrible sword! Is this a holy weapon? How could it release such a terrible power? Of course it's not a holy weapon. This sword is at least a quasi-imperial weapon. Everyone was terrified and felt stiff all over, and it was extremely difficult to move. Around the giant sword, the space cracked inch by inch, as if it could not bear its pressure. Although everyone present was strong, they were suppressed and almost suffocated. This scene shocked everyone, and their eyes were full of fear and fear. Those monks who had just arrived at Xuanhuan Mountain were also stunned, with their hair standing on end and their bodies cold. A holy sword was suspended in the sky, giving people a strong sense of oppression. Although it seemed calm, it was more oppressive than ordinary quasi-imperial weapons, as if it could cut off the stars in the sky, and its power was earth-shaking. What a terrifying fluctuation! This is definitely a treasure of the imperial weapon level, and it is of extremely high quality. Someone took a deep breath, his face was extremely pale, and cold sweat was dripping. You should feel it carefully, there are very terrible sword laws around it, someone else reminded. Hearing this, the other cultivators immediately closed their eyes and used their spiritual senses to sense it. As expected, they found that there was an extremely majestic and heavy law power surging around the sword, like an ocean, full of destructive power. Wow, it actually contains such a pure and vast law power, which is terrifying. I'm afraid only the emperor has it. The crowd couldn't help swallowing their saliva, and a huge wave of horror rose in their hearts. An imperial weapon is enough to easily destroy any large city, kill everything, and slaughter countless lives. If it explodes, I'm afraid the entire Xuanhuan mountain will be destroyed. This sword intent is so familiar. Suddenly, someone whispered, "It's the Lord of the Great Qin." Swish! Suddenly, the holy sword vibrated gently, and countless golden runes flew out, entwining the giant sword, emitting extremely terrifying fluctuations. In those runes, there is a certain law, which makes the holy sword more dazzling and the breath it releases more terrifying. Endless figures looked up at the sky, and a great uproar was set off in their hearts. Hiss! Some cultivators took a breath and couldn't help but exclaimed, with shock on their faces. What kind of method is this, so terrible? Is the Lord of the Great Qin already so powerful? Many people couldn't help swallowing their saliva, and their hearts were full of doubts. The giant sword trembled slightly, and the breath it exuded became more and more terrifying, as if it was summoning something. At this moment, a ray of rosy light floated out from the void, gradually gathered, and condensed into a figure, slowly stepping on the void. He was wearing a black and gold dragon robe, with handsome features, and his gestures revealed the power of a king, which was awe-inspiring. Meet the Lord of the Great Qin. After seeing the figure clearly, countless people knelt down respectfully, with pious and respectful expressions, as if believers had met a real king. Meet your Majesty. The elders and heads of the major sects also knelt on one knee, with reverence in their eyes. They all knew that today was the day of the rise of the Great Qin, and it was also the time for Emperor Qin to prove his way. We welcome your Majesty, everyone shouted in unison, and the sound waves rolled and shook the sky. Qin Mu did not stop, and continued to move forward. At this time, a dragon roar suddenly sounded between heaven and earth, loud and high, like thunder in the sky, making countless people's eardrums buzzing, and even mixed with the sound of flesh and blood being torn, making them look pale and dizzy. In an instant, all the cultivators looked over and saw that in the distant sky, dark clouds covered the sun and cast a shadow. Then a terrifying aura descended, and endless thunder emerged, covering the entire void. In the thunder, a huge monster loomed, and terrible tornadoes swirled around it, sweeping across the 8 wildernesses, making all the cultivators feel suffocated. This was a golden dragon, about 100 feet long, majestic. Every inch of its scale seemed to contain the power to destroy the world, which made everyone change color. The dragon was surrounded by purple lightning. Every step it took, countless lightning patterns appeared under its feet, causing the void to crack and shatter, which was extremely terrifying. Qin Mu stood on the dragon head, like a god in charge of heavenly punishment, domineering and cold, overlooking the entire continent. He looked in all directions, looking down on the world. Instantly, everyone fell silent. Many people with weaker cultivation bases could not bear Qin Mu's gaze at all. Just by looking at it, they felt a strong sense of discomfort in their hearts, as if they had fallen into the 9 nether hell. That aura was so terrible that compared to it, they were as small as ants, with no room for resistance and could only look up. Even at a long distance, it felt boundless and unmatched. Is this the legendary power of the Emperor? Above the Xuanhuan mountain, countless cultivators looked up at the tall figure in the void, all showing fanatical expressions and yearning. At this moment, another extremely terrifying majesty descended, and the terrifying aura spread out, sweeping like an ocean, filling every inch of space, causing countless cultivators to change their faces wildly, and be silent, not even daring to breathe. Cry. Only a sharp and piercing phoenix cry was heard, piercing gold and cracking rocks, resounding throughout the world, making everyone's soul tremble violently and their faces pale. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound, and saw a flaming figure appear in the void, with a red body and an endless hot temperature, as if they were in a furnace. When the figure appeared, the entire Xuanhuan mountain was shrouded in a terrifying high temperature, making countless people feel extremely hot, as if they were in purgatory. Real Phoenix. When seeing the red fire phoenix, everyone's eyes flashed with shock again. The crowd's hearts twitched suddenly, the corners of their mouths twitched slightly, their faces were full of astonishment, and their hearts were even more turbulent, unable to calm down for a long time. They actually saw the real Phoenix with their own eyes, the legendary existence. The real Phoenix is a divine beast. An adult real Phoenix has a combat power infinitely close to the Emperor level. It is one of the top few divine birds in the world. It is said that the Zhenfeng is a strange beast left over from the ancient times. It has an extremely strong recovery ability. Even if it suffers a fatal injury, it can recover immediately as long as it survives. Moreover, the Zhenfeng clan had a hard time reproducing, and their numbers were extremely rare and extremely precious. They disappeared as early as the Taishu era, and only legends circulated in the long river of history. Therefore, they were so shocked when they saw the real phoenix. Each true phoenix has a unique symbolic meaning and is absolutely noble. The flaming true phoenix in front of us has obviously reached the level of a true phoenix, and is still in its true infancy. It will definitely be able to break through its shackles and transform into a true divine bird in the future. True dragon, true phoenix, the dragon and the phoenix complement each other, this is destiny. Countless monks murmured to themselves in low voices, stirring up turmoil in their hearts that could not calm down for a long time. They looked at the two majestic figures, excitement appeared on their faces involuntarily, and there was enthusiasm and awe in the depths of their eyes. Is this the foundation of Qin? It's so magnificent, it's like a legendary miracle. Everyone was deeply shocked by the scene in front of them. They had never seen such a magnificent scene. It was like a feast coming, and it was shocking. Now. Rumble. In the void, the true phoenix hovered above the sky, its whole body burning with hot flames, and its golden eyes showed a cold and arrogant look on the world. As her wings flapped, endless flames suddenly spurted out, burning the entire space into a sea of fire. The flames burned as fast as thunder and spread in all directions, covering an area thousands of miles in radius. Pillars of fire shot up into the sky, making the entire holy mountain look extremely gorgeous, as if it were a fairy palace of flames. The scene was extremely beautiful. In the flames, terrifying figures appeared vaguely, like phoenixes, true dragons, unicorns, and kunpengs. They all had extremely terrifying looks and were extremely powerful. The scene above All Saints Mountain at this moment is extremely spectacular, as if the gods have come to the world, divine beasts are rampant between heaven and earth, and all living creatures are crawling and trembling under their feet. Qin Mu wore a black gold dragon robe and came stepping on auspicious clouds, looking majestic and solemn. He sat on the chariot and looked around calmly. Greetings to your majesty. Greetings to your majesty. In an instant, all the monks knelt on one knee and shouted in unison. The scene shocked everyone. See your majesty. See your majesty. See your majesty. One after another, the respectful voices echoed between heaven and earth, resounding through the sky. Then, the vast sounds came together, like a strange magical power, making people intoxicated and unable to extricate themselves. At this moment, the entire Halloween Mountain people knelt down to welcome his arrival. Such a picture is so shocking. Qin Mu's eyes swept downwards indifferently, his expression showed no wavering at all, and he spoke slowly. Today, I personally lead an army to attack Xingtian Temple. You are willing to follow me in the expeditions in all directions and promote the power of the Qin dynasty. Kill! 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 Millions of monks shouted in unison, the sound was deafening, and they swallowed the mountains and rivers with anger. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 539. At this moment, all the hundreds of millions of cultivators in Wanzhong Mountain surrendered, bowed their heads, and allowed Qin Mu to do whatever he wanted. Qin Mu, on the other hand, sat high on the throne and was dignified and solemn. At this time, Qin Mu has made preparations. The destiny of the Qin dynasty has been successfully gathered. He will use this huge destiny to build a peerless army, march across the 9 states, annihilate the Xingtian Temple, and bloodbath the 3 holy places. Qin Mu stood up and looked around at the crowd below. His eyes suddenly became sharp and he said, I know that some of you may have evil intentions, but I hope that you understand what I want. After the words fell, many people's hearts trembled suddenly, their hearts beat faster, and they stared nervously at the figure above. What I want is loyalty, not rebellion. Qin Mu continued, I can give you glory and wealth, or I can take it back. You must understand your situation. As soon as these words were said, sweat broke out on many people's foreheads, and their eyes showed strong fear and worry. Since you all understand this, don't worry. As long as you serve me loyally, I will not treat you badly. Qin Malang smiled, with a kind smile in his eyes. Of course, if you betray me, then I guarantee that you will soon taste what pain is. After the words fell, many people's hearts trembled violently, and their faces suddenly turned pale. At this moment, they felt as if they were in an ice cave, their whole bodies were wrapped in a cold air, and they couldn't help but shiver. Although Qin Mu was not angry, his words were full of coldness, which sent shivers down their spines and a sense of fear in their hearts. They knew very well that this king, who was only in his 20s, was a ruthless man who would never show any mercy to his enemies and would only eradicate them. Your Majesty is so wise and powerful, we will definitely be devastated and swear to be loyal to your Majesty to the death. For a moment, everyone spoke in agreement, expressing their sincerity. That's very good. Please get up, everyone. Qin Mu waved his hand. It can be seen that the shock effect of today's appearance is very good. That sword was naturally his heavenly emperor sword, and the dragon and phoenix were transformed by Long Xiaoxiao and Fengju. This dragon and phoenix had a strong bloodline and extraordinary talent. After such a long period of growth and transformation, their strength was far superior to that of ordinary quasi-emperors. Of course, the most important thing is the contribution of Qin Mu and their dual cultivation. Especially Long Xiaoxiao, who has true dragon blood flowing in his body. Once he reaches adulthood, he will be a quasi-emperor level existence, and his strength is extremely terrifying. The same is true for Fengju. He is the top evildoer of the Feng clan, with extraordinary talent. Once he reaches adulthood, he can also compete with the quasi-emperor. Therefore, it was most appropriate for Qin Mu to summon them to suppress his momentum. At the same time, on the outskirts of Wanzhong Mountain, all the major sects and families also learned the news, and countless people secretly sighed in their hearts that De Qin really wanted to unify the 9 regions. Once Jingtian Temple and the other 2 holy places are destroyed, De Qin will become the overlord of the 9 regions, and no one will dare to disobey it. This is such an ambition, it is frightening. Qin Mu's ambition was obvious, but no one dared to resist or raise objections. After all, none of them wanted to follow in the footsteps of the 3 holy lands and become the souls killed by Qin Mu's sword. Qin Mu stood on the top of the All Saints Mountain, overlooking the boundless scene below, with a faint smile on his face. After today, the 9 regions will no longer be the 9 regions of the 4 holy lands, but the 9 regions of Great Qin. Qin Mu whispered to himself softly. Although his voice was small, it was clearly transmitted to everyone's eardrums. After these words fell, the whole world became quiet, and countless people trembled inwardly, and their hearts beat violently. Your Majesty has great talents and great plans, and is a man of extraordinary talents. He is a blessing to the 9 realms and a blessing to the human race. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded, full of passionate emotions. After hearing this, everyone looked towards the place where the sound came from, where several old men stood impressively. These people are all elders from first-class holy places and sect forces. They are the most powerful beings in the 9 realms, and they have accumulated extremely terrifying foundations over the long years. In addition, countless second-rate sects and aristocratic families came to congratulate him, including many powerful saints, all of whom were somewhat famous in the human race. They did not attend the celebration originally. They all came here overnight after receiving the news from the elders of their sects. The reason why these people came here is very simple, they just want to curry favor with Qin Mu and hug his thigh. His Majesty has great ambitions and great strategies, and the heavens are so powerful that we are willing to follow him. Immediately afterwards, many older and powerful men came out and bowed to Qin Mu, expressing their sincerity and their voices loud and clear. Your Majesty has great talents and great strategies, and he is so powerful that we are willing to follow him. His Majesty has great ambitions and strategies, and the heavens are so powerful that we are willing to follow him." In an instant, waves of sounds continued to sound, coming like a tide, causing the All Saints Mountain to shake slightly. At this time, their expressions were full of excitement and excitement. If the Qin could unify the 9 regions, their family sect would surely rise and benefit a lot. Huh, Qin Mu raised his eyebrows, and the corners of his mouth curved into a playful arc. He didn't expect that these people would be so knowledgeable, which would save him a lot of trouble. Qin Mu looked calm and glanced at the people below, with a faint curl at the corner of his mouth. These people can be considered the pillars of the human race and are worth winning over. Of course, the most important thing is that with the addition of these strong men from the older generation, he will lose a lot of constraints. He believed that as long as they could be given enough benefits, these older generation figures would definitely spare no effort to help him. After all, who would go against benefits? Even if there were a few who were dissatisfied, they could be suppressed with just one sentence, and there would be no waves at all. "Thank you all." Qin Mu smiled and said, "Since you want to follow me, how can I live up to your expectations? From now on, you will all follow me. I will definitely not treat you unfairly and protect you well." Qin Mu's voice was sonorous and powerful, pointing directly to the hearts of the people, which made the older generation of strong men below look excited, and their faces became more excited. "Thank you, Your Majesty," they bowed their heads in gratitude, their eyes bright. "We must do our best and die," they shouted in unison, respectful, as if they were swearing. Then, one by one, the old men came forward, walked in front of Qin Mu, and bowed their hands to greet him. These people are all the great elders of the major clans and families. They have strong cultivation and amazing combat power. They have a pivotal position in any force. But now, their fate has been completely handed over to Qin Mu. They are naturally very nervous, afraid of doing anything wrong and making Qin Mu unhappy. But at this moment, Qin Mu suddenly paused, with an inexplicable smile on his face. Hearing this, the crowd's heart suddenly tightened, wondering why Qin Mu suddenly stopped. Could it be that he was dissatisfied with them? Thinking of this, the crowd's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. "I don't accept trash," Qin Mu slowly uttered a cold voice. Hearing this, the people below were stunned for a moment, then their faces turned pale, and their hearts completely fell to the bottom of the valley. Qin Mu really didn't intend to take them. They are the top powerhouses of the major forces. They are first-class existences in the outside world. How could they become trash? Qin Mu saw the doubts in their hearts and said calmly, "I am not targeting you, but stating a fact. If you want to join the Qin dynasty, you must first prove your worth. I don't want mediocre people." Qin Mu's words made the crowd suddenly understand what Qin Mu meant. Qin Mu was indeed testing them. No matter how good their talents were, he would not accept them as long as he thought they did not meet the standards. This was very cruel. But at the same time, this test can also test their loyalty to the Qin dynasty. If they can't even pass the test, they are naturally not qualified to join the Qin dynasty. Think about it from another angle. If you don't have a loyal heart, how can you take on important responsibilities? The so-called loyal ministers and good generals are definitely not praised by words. Instead, you have to prove yourself with actual actions. Only such ministers are worthy of being called loyal ministers. Your Majesty is right. Your Majesty, please look. An elder stepped forward, took out a space ring, and said respectfully, "There are 1,000,000 spirit crystals in this storage ring. Please count them, Your Majesty." After these words fell, the void was silent. 1,000,000 spirit crystals, this is beyond everyone's expectations, far exceeding the income of the general sect forces for several years. Everyone immediately gritted their teeth and looked at the old man. He set the standard so high right from the start. What should they do? Very good. Qin Mu nodded with satisfaction, then he took the ring, explored it with his mind for a moment, and then waved his hand, "Go down." "Your Majesty is wise." The old man immediately stepped aside with a bright smile on his face. Others sighed in their hearts. Although they were reluctant to take out so many spirit crystals, they also understood that now was not the time to bargain. "I just hope that Qin will not break his promise." "Your Majesty, I have a jade talisman here, which is a top-level ancient spiritual treasure. It has both offensive and defensive capabilities and is quite powerful. I specially send it to your Majesty for self-defense." An old man with a long beard stepped forward and handed over a green jade stone with faint patterns shining on it, revealing vicissitudes of life and simplicity. "This jade pendant was obtained by me in an ancient cave somewhere. I'm afraid only those ancient beings know its specific origin. I guess it may be left by a great emperor," the old man continued to explain. OK, Qin took the jade talisman without hesitation, and his smile became even more intense. "Your Majesty, I have a treasure here, called the Blue Lotus Sword Diagram, which is a set of combined attack treasures with great power. If it is activated by sword energy, it can bloom 3,000 sword shadows, each of which has extremely strong penetrating power, comparable to a quasi-emperor weapon. Haha, I have a spiritual pill list here, which is said to be made by the former Dan Emperor. It can amplify the essence contained in the medicinal materials and improve the efficacy. I present it to your Majesty." "Your Majesty, I have a bottle of spiritual liquid here. After taking it, you can instantly restore the consumed Yuan Li, and it can also improve the physique and body of the saint cultivator. It is extremely precious. I have a forbidden pill here. After taking it, you can temporarily seal your cultivation and soul, so that people below the emperor cannot detect his true strength for a short time. I also have it here." "Your Majesty." One after another, the strong men took out some extremely rare things. Perhaps they were really shocked by Qin, and they dared not be stingy and wanted to offer everything they had. The atmosphere in the square became extremely lively, with people talking and talking, just like a vegetable market. For a while, all kinds of rare treasures appeared one after another, all of which were extremely precious. "I have something to ask you at this moment," an old man suddenly stood up and asked Qin. Qin raised his eyebrows, looked at the old man with interest, and asked, "What's the matter?" The old man stroked his beard, with a deep smile on his face, and said, "Your Majesty, are you short of concubines?" Hearing this, Qin eyes froze slightly, with a bit of surprise in his eyes. "I have 2 daughters who have never been married. I am willing to follow your Majesty and serve you." "I hope your Majesty will do it," the old man said again, his tone sincere. "Are you sure?" Qin smiled. The old man nodded and said, "Your Majesty is gifted and destined to become the strongest in the 9 domains of the human race. If your Majesty can take a few concubines, you can give birth to blood and continue the royal bloodline." The corners of the mouths of the people around him twitched fiercely when they heard this. "Haha, old man, you want to take this opportunity to let your daughter enter the palace to serve His Majesty," someone in the crowd sneered. "Humph, I just care about the future of Dakin," the old man retorted. His face did not change at all, and even with a bit of pride, he seemed to be justified. "Your Majesty, my 3 daughters are also beautiful, gentle, and skillful, and will definitely assist your Majesty with all their heart and soul. Why not take them into the palace?" another old man also persuaded. "Your Majesty." The crowd shouted in unison, staring at Qin with burning eyes, as if afraid that he would not agree. Seeing this scene, many monks around them had their hearts beating wildly. This scene was too shocking for them. These old men are usually powerful figures, high above, worshipped by the world, but now they are humble in front of Qin, humble to the dust. They are even willing to give their daughters to Qin as concubines. Qin naturally couldn't refuse them. He happily accepted these treasures one by one and said with a smile, You are so polite. I am very pleased. From now on, my concubines will be arranged by you. I hope you will not disgrace your status as beauties. Your Majesty, what are you talking about? It is their honor that your Majesty can take a fancy to our little daughters. How dare they ask for anything else? The old men hurriedly shook their heads and said, their faces flushed with excitement, as if they had received a great honor. Afterwards, some strong men successively expressed their willingness to give their own female disciples to Qin Mu. I like your gifts very much. Qin Mu nodded with a smile. Thank you, Your Majesty, for your appreciation. These old men were very excited, with smiles on their faces. Qin Mu glanced at the crowd around him and said, since you are so sincere, I will accept it with a smile, but I also have a piece of advice. I wonder if you are willing to listen. Your Majesty, please feel free to speak. I want to establish the great Qin dynasty and recreate the prosperity of 10,000 years. I need talents, and I will not favor one over the other. I will select outstanding talents to enter the great Qin dynasty and serve in various positions. If you have outstanding children in your family, I also welcome them to join. Qin Mu said slowly. Your Majesty is unparalleled in benevolence and righteousness, and I am grateful to you. Your Majesty is a man of great talent and strategy. We are willing to follow you until death. All the old men bowed and saluted, with pious expressions and infinite emotions in their hearts. In an instant, waves of cheering and shouting rang out in the square, and the crowd knelt on the ground with extremely respectful expressions. Your Majesty is the son of destiny, ruling the world, and has made unparalleled achievements. We are willing to follow you forever, all the old men said one after another. You don't have to be so polite, all get up. Qin Mu waved his hand. The crowd stood up after hearing this and stood aside respectfully, not daring to be negligent in the slightest. You are so cooperative that I don't know how to reward you. Qin Mu touched his chin and said with some entanglement. He looked at the crowd, and suddenly his eyes lit up. In this case, I will give each of you a gold medal of immunity from death. Gold medal of immunity from death. Thank you, Your Majesty, for your grace. The crowd kowtowed again to thank the grace, with a strong joy on their faces. Being able to get the gold medal of immunity from death is enough to prove their status in the mind of His Majesty, and they will have a higher status in the great Qin dynasty in the future. At this moment, the crowd was full of gratitude. Fortunately, they arrived in time and presented gifts. If they missed the opportunity, they might not be qualified in the future. Qin Mu condensed one hand, and the gold medals of immunity from death, which were shining with golden light and engraved with the words of Great Qin, fell into the hands of these old men. Everyone held them in their arms and smiled happily. They smiled brightly, and Qin Mu smiled even brighter. As everyone knows, whether the death-free gold medal can save lives or not is up to him. After resolving this matter, Qin Mu no longer hesitated and announced loudly, "Pass the order down," set off immediately to attack Xingtian Temple. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Leng Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 540. Qin Mu waved his hand, and in an instant, pieces of crystal clear tiger talismans floated in the void. Those tiger talismans burst into dazzling light, illuminating the void, and a stream of extremely mysterious auras spread out, making people tremble with fear and feel inexplicably depressed. Even many weak cultivators could not bear it and spit out blood directly. These tiger talismans were cast by the previous emperors of the Qin dynasty, representing the supreme power. Each tiger talisman has an immortal heritage and will. You listen to my orders, Qin Mu shouted loudly, with a resolute voice that could not be refused. I am here. A group of cultivators bowed and clasped their fists, their eyes filled with a strong fighting spirit. I grant you the command of the tiger talisman to command the army. Anyone who disobeys will be killed. Qin Mu continued to speak, his voice was icy and piercing. Hearing this, a group of cultivators were extremely excited, and their eyes burst into a fiery color. This tiger talisman symbolizes the right to command. As long as you hold the tiger talisman, you have the power to mobilize the Qin army. Moreover, this tiger talisman was created by generations of emperors, containing special artistic conception and rules, and is extremely powerful. I obey your order, the monks shouted in unison, shaking the sky. Let's go. Qin Mu waved his sleeves and turned into a stream of light and flew to the dragon sedan in the air. Then he sat on the dragon sedan and drove south. A mighty army of thousands of female monks followed on the left and right, with flags fluttering and heroic appearance. In an instant, countless armies walked out of Wanzhong Mountain and stepped into the void. Although these armies are not very elite, they are huge in scale, with 1 million people and a huge momentum, like a rolling flood, shocking and frightening. Daoxuan Domain. Qingxi City. This is the closest city to Qingtian Temple, and it is also the only place where you can see the elders of Qingtian Temple through the city. Therefore, many powerful cultivators gathered here, including many geniuses from all walks of life, all of whom wanted to join Qingtian Temple. Of course, Qingtian Temple does not accept everyone. Only true geniuses are qualified to join. Otherwise, they don't even have the chance to be outer disciples. In the central area of Qingxi City, there is a towering tower, towering into the clouds, as if it is about to pierce the sky. On the top of this tower stands a majestic giant statue, standing on the top of the tower with his hands behind his back, surrounded by 99 ancient star trees, exuding a vast and profound atmosphere, giving people an infinite sense of mystery, making people can't help but admire and respect. It was Qin Jiangzi, the third master of Qingtian Temple. Qin Jiangzi was one of the most dazzling geniuses of the human race. He once suppressed his peers in the 9 realms for hundreds of years with his cultivation in the realm of Zhandao. Later, after breaking through the realm of saints, he swept across the 8 wastelands and 6 directions as a saint, and his reputation spread far and wide. Finally, he achieved the status of the great emperor, reached the peak, and overlooked the vast land with unparalleled prestige. This is a legendary existence. If we talk about who has the most hope of becoming an immortal in the 9 domains of the human race, Qin Jiangzi is undoubtedly the first person. But unfortunately, he died before he achieved immortality, leaving behind the good story of Qingtian Temple. At this time, a group of young men and women came from a distance and landed on a vast plain, looking dusty. Finally arrived the purple-clothed young man at the head, wiped the sweat on his face and showed a happy look. His name is Lin Qingyu, with extraordinary talent. He stepped into the realm of cave emptiness at the age of 45 and was hailed as the first genius of the Lin family in 100 years. In addition to him, the few people around him are also the direct descendants of their respective families, with transcendent status. They rushed all the way and finally arrived in Qingxi City to participate in the test of Qingtian Temple to recruit outer disciples. Brother Lin, what level of power is Qingtian Temple? At this time, a voice sounded and asked. The questioner was a young man in red, with a burly figure, healthy bronze skin, and a bit of arrogance between his eyebrows. Qingtian Temple is the most powerful force in the 9 regions, with a profound foundation, endless years of inheritance, and unfathomable foundation, Lin Qingyu said with a smile, and his tone could not hide his admiration for Qingtian Temple. Oh, it's so powerful, I'm looking forward to it. Another young man in white laughed, looking quite excited, and seemed to be very curious about the specific situation of Qingtian Temple. Is this Qingxi City? It's so big at this time, a girl in green said. She was wearing a green dress, standing tall, with snow-white skin, looking very delicate and beautiful, and a trace of spiritual charm between her eyebrows. Obviously, She came from a powerful immortal cultivation family. A girl in red next to her said with a smile, "Brother King you have a lot of experience, take us into the city quickly." Her name is Lu Meng'er, a natural beauty, beautiful appearance, enchanting temperament. She is quite confident in herself, believing that with her appearance and temperament, she will definitely be able to join Qingtian Temple. Maybe she can also rely on her own charm talent to attract a group of geniuses to pursue her, and then she will definitely be able to obtain a very high status. Her own cultivation is not weak, having reached the second level of Yuan Shen, and she is a leader in their family. Since Sister Meng'er said so, how dare Qingyu neglect it? Lin Qingyu said in a gentle and elegant manner, and then turned to face everyone and said loudly, "Everyone, please follow me to Qingtian Temple. As long as you pass the assessment, you can worship in Qingtian Temple." Great Lu Meng'er and the other Tianjiao smiled at each other and hurriedly followed, looking forward to it. If they could join Qingtian Temple, their future would be limitless. Lin Qingyu nodded slightly, then took off into the air and flew towards the towering tower. The streets in the city are spacious and bright, the buildings are neat and clean, the shops are lined up, the goods are dazzling, and there are all kinds of restaurants and tea houses, a prosperous scene. Giant spirit boats and treasure ships flew across the sky, and huge mounts galloped across the sky, with extremely fast speeds, raising violent winds, like a hurricane, scaring passers-by to flee. The people of Qingxi City have long been accustomed to such scenes, and they don't care at all, and what to do is still the same. Is this Qingxi City? It's really magnificent. The girl in green opened her eyes wide and looked around curiously. This is the territory of Qingtian Temple, so it is naturally very prosperous. If you like it, I will accompany you to visit it after you join Qingtian Temple. The young man in white patted his chest and promised. Great, great, the girl in green was immediately excited. When Lin Qingyu heard the two people talking, a smile appeared on his lips, and he shook his head secretly and sighed. These people have never been far away, and they only live in a small area in Liwoyu. They don't know how powerful and terrifying Qingtian Temple is. As one of the four holy places in Xuanhuan, Qingtian Temple has a vast territory and many disciples. Even the most ordinary disciples are top geniuses in first-class forces. It is almost impossible for these small families to join Qingtian Temple. After all, many forces want to join Qingtian Temple every year, but Qingtian Temple selects the best seedlings for training, and those ordinary forces have no chance at all. It can even be said that these people are doomed to fail, and they don't even have the qualifications to apply for the outer disciples of Qingtian Temple. Lin Qingyu quickly gathered his thoughts and continued to move forward. The monks in Qingxi City also rushed to the giant tower, wanting to admire the former Qin Jiang's style and worship and admiration for this legendary person of Qingtian Temple. Boom! At this moment, a violent hurricane suddenly blew up in the sky, thunder roared, dark clouds rolled, and darkness enveloped the entire city, making people feel uneasy. What's going on? Countless monks stopped and looked up at the sky in astonishment, each with a solemn expression. Lin Qingyu and others were also stunned, with a hint of doubt in their eyes. What's going on over there? Some ignorant mortals pointed to the sky and asked. There was a dark place, as if it was covered by something, exuding a cold breath, which was creepy. Go. Don't look at it, that's the immortals in the sky fighting. The experienced old man hurriedly pulled the child away from the place. The crowd woke up from their dreams when they heard this, and fled one after another, fearing that they would be affected. Boom! Suddenly, a terrifying roar came from the sky, like thunder exploding, deafening, and countless people covered their ears. There, the void collapsed, the sky was broken, and the dark clouds cracked a gap, and then exploded with a bang, shooting down countless sharp sword beams, each of which flashed with a cold luster, as if it could tear the sky apart. The monks around had already dodged, and the streets were crowded with people, but silent, and everyone showed a look of horror, shocked by this mighty force. In particular, this mighty force was mixed with a solemn and murderous aura, vaguely revealing an invisible oppressive force, shrouding their souls, as if they were locked by some kind of giant beast, palpitating and trembling. However, people still couldn't help but look up at the sky and witness this spectacular scene. In the void, countless sword beams gathered together. On each sword beam stood a terrifying existence, with a sharp breath and decisive killing, as if a group of killing gods had descended. They stood in the void, their clothes fluttering, rustling, and filled with a tyrannical aura, as if they could destroy everything. In the center of them, a magnificent chariot spanned the void, supported by 9 5-clawed golden dragons, with dazzling brilliance all over the body, and surrounded by golden phoenixes, overflowing with rosy clouds, gorgeous and dazzling. At the front of the chariot stood thousands of fairy-like women, each of them was beautiful and unparalleled, with noble temperament. They all wore white skirts, colorful ribbons around their waists, stepped on jade steps, and were graceful, giving people an indescribable charm. This is it the heavenly soldiers and generals, the crowd whispered in doubt. They were stunned and did not expect to see such a shocking scene. In their impression, only the heavenly soldiers in the fairy world have such power, right? Look, there seems to be words there, suddenly a sharp-eyed man exclaimed. Huh, everyone looked in the direction the man pointed and exclaimed, that's, the words Dakin. Dakin, some people frowned, some were puzzled, and some showed a thoughtful look. At this time, bursts of loud horns suddenly sounded in the sky, and one after another huge building ships came, each of which was like a palace, exuding an ancient and vicissitudes of life, engraved with strands of complex patterns. Obviously, it was made of rare materials and had amazing defense. There were tens of thousands of monks standing on these building ships, all wearing silver armor, neat and uniform, standing in the void like a steel army, revealing a solemn and dignified atmosphere. There were figures standing on the 2 leading ships. Each figure exuded a powerful aura. Their bodies were armored and their auras were sharp, just like real war machines. Their eyes were piercing, with an extremely sharp luster, as if they could understand everything, causing countless monks below to remain silent, not daring to make the slightest sound, for fear of attracting their attention. Crack, another thunder streaked across the sky, illuminating the entire void. Everyone's eyes went blank at first, and then their vision gradually recovered. I saw 2 lines of large characters in the void, which were particularly eye-catching. They reacted quickly, their eyes widened in an exaggerated way, and they looked at the lines of writing on the sky in surprise. Qingtian Temple colluded with demons from outside the territory to harm innocent people. The crime deserves death. Today, the Qin dynasty is punishing the emperor on behalf of the sky, and his whole family should be punished. This sentence is short, clear, sonorous, and powerful, with a chilling air that is shocking and chilling. For a moment, the world was silent, and everyone's heads were roaring, which could not be calmed down for a long time. They even suspected that they had just hallucinated. View of the blue sky. Colluding with foreign demons. At this moment, countless people screamed in surprise, with shock in their eyes, feeling as if their worldview was about to collapse. Qingtian Temple is a super sect of the human race. It is unparalleled in strength and has a profound foundation. It controls dozens of cities and has many disciples spread all over the 9 regions. They even have connections with many forces in the human race. Their relationships are intricate, complicated, and too involved. They are definitely the ones who cannot be messed with. Now they actually say that Qingtian Temple colludes with demons from outside the territory to harm innocent people, and threatens to kill all of them. How domineering and arrogant this is. Who believes it? Who dares to believe it? Doesn't this mean he is an enemy to the entire human race? Unless you're crazy. It must be false, I heard false news. Yeah, this must be a rumor. What kind of power is this great Qin dynasty? Why have I never heard of it? I don't know, but looking at this power, it shouldn't be a small force. Many people were talking, their moods were fluctuating violently, and they were unwilling to admit that this was a fact. After all, this was too shocking. If it were true, it would definitely cause chaos in the world and cause an uproar. Not only them, but many saints and prince-level figures also showed strange expressions at this time, and they were constantly guessing. Is this really the case? In front of the tower, Lin Qingyu and several men and women who were traveling with him were also looking up at the sky, their expressions changing unpredictably. Brother Qingyu, what is going on? Lu Meng'er's body trembled slightly and her voice trembled slightly. Don't panic. Qingtian Temple is one of the most powerful holy places in the human race. It has profound heritage and monstrous strength. How can it be possible to collude with demons from outside the territory? This must be a rumor. Lin Qingyu said solemnly. Even though he said this, he still couldn't hide the solemn look on his face. Although he didn't know the specific reason, this matter was definitely not that simple. Yes, Meng'er, don't worry. How could Qingtian Temple collude with demons from outside the territory? This is simply impossible. This must be some bastard's fabrication. On the other side, a young man in white echoed. After finishing speaking, he pointed at Long Chu in the distance and said disdainfully again, "Look, it won't take long before someone from Qingtian Temple will come out to deal with them. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid." Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 541. Hearing him say this, Lu Meng'er's worries disappeared immediately. Yes, what is Qingtian Temple? That is the Taishan Baidu of Deoxuan domain and even the entire human race. How could it be colluding with demons from outside the domain? This is simply nonsense, and it is impossible to happen. Lin Qingyu's face was solemn. He glanced at the Qinjiangzi statue on the high ground, and his heart was relieved, but he was still a little uneasy. Judging from his understanding of Qingtian Temple and his inner thoughts, he certainly didn't believe this. But the other party was so sure, as if he had already won, and he always felt something was wrong. Since he dared to say such a cruel word, it proved that the other party was ready, or had planned it long ago, and it could not be questioned or changed. Thinking of this, Lin Qingyu's lips moved, as if he was about to say something. But after thinking about it, he didn't speak in the end. "Everyone, please be patient, I think there must be something strange about this matter." Suddenly, a voice came from the crowd, attracting everyone's attention. An old man in a blue robe walked out slowly, with a kind face and a charm of immortal spirit. He put his hands behind his back and glanced at the big characters. Then, he turned around and said loudly, "I am the national teacher of the Xuanhuan dynasty. Everyone can listen to me." After this, the space suddenly became quiet. Many people stopped talking and their eyes fell on the old man in the blue robe. The Xuanhuan dynasty is a dynasty under the Qingtian Temple. It is also the top level among the many dynasties under the jurisdiction of the Qingtian Temple. The national teacher has a prominent status and real power. Since he stood up and spoke, it must not be aimless. "National teacher, what do you think?" "Yes, please speak." The crowd nodded one after another, looking at the old man in the blue robe with awe in their eyes. The old man in blue robe stroked his beard and continued, "This is indeed a bit strange. As far as I know, the disciples of Qingtian Temple have never stepped out of the 9 regions of the human race in the past 1,000 years, let alone have any dealings with foreign races. How could they be accused of colluding with foreign demons to harm the human race?" The crowd nodded secretly after hearing this. It was indeed true. As one of the 4 holy places in Deoxuan domain, Qingtian Temple had a profound foundation and a long history. It was absolutely impossible for it to do such a treasonous thing. The national teacher is right. This rumor is not credible. I think it is possible that some forces want to persecute Qingtian Temple, so they created rumors in an attempt to destroy the reputation of Qingtian Temple. I agree with the national teacher's opinion. Qingtian Temple is a holy place for the human race. The sages of all generations have protected the human race, blessed the people, and are revered by all spirits. How could it be possible to collude with foreign demons? This is unreasonable. Well, what the national teacher said is very true. Qingtian Temple is highly respected and loved by all people. How could it do such a conscienceless evil thing? Yes, it must be a false accusation. How could Qingtian Temple collude with foreign demons? Someone spoke up, and soon, others also expressed their agreement, all tending to believe that Qingtian Temple would not collude with foreign demons. Hearing this, the people around nodded in agreement and sat down with peace of mind, ready to watch the show. There will definitely be people from Qingtian Temple who will show up and teach those guys a lesson. For so many years, Qingtian Temple has stood at the top of the human race, respected by billions of people, and has always adhered to the purpose of slaying demons and punishing evil and promoting good, safeguarding the safety of the people. Such a Taoist holy place would never do anything to collude with foreign demons. Humph, the mere Great Qin dynasty dares to provoke Qingtian Temple, it's really tired of living. That's right, Qingtian Temple is so famous, they dare to frame, Qingtian Temple will definitely make them pay with blood. The people around spoke one after another, not caring about the 2 rows of big words at all. They have been in Qingxi City for so many years, and they are very clear about the strength of Qingtian Temple. This is an unfathomable and powerful force that cannot be matched, and no force can shake its position. Even if the so-called Great Qin dynasty is coming with great momentum, they also believe that they will never be able to break through the defense of Qingtian Temple. Moreover, this is Qingxi City, which belongs to the jurisdiction of Qingtian Temple. It is enough to just wait for the news to come and watch the show. At this moment, countless people were looking forward to the appearance of people from Qingtian Temple, severely attacking those guys who slandered Qingtian Temple and killing them all. Only Lin Qingyu frowned, his eyelids twitched wildly, and he felt a little uneasy. Qingtian Temple. In a remote courtyard, an old woman sat cross-legged on a cushion. She had a haggard face, silver hair, and wore simple Taoist clothes. Her eyes were slightly closed, and she was practicing breathing. Suddenly, the door opened, and several monks wearing the clothes of outer sect elders walked into the room. They all looked respectful and bowed to the old woman. Greetings to the Supreme Elder. Everyone shouted in unison, with admiration in their eyes, and even with strong fanaticism. The Supreme Elder, the second in command of Qingtian Temple, was extremely powerful. He usually lived in seclusion and rarely appeared. His Taoism was unfathomable. Although she was just an old woman, she had an extremely high status in Qingtian Temple. You are here. The old woman opened her eyes and revealed a cloudy look. I already know what happened in the outside world, so there is no need to talk about it. Her tone was cold and chilly, like a death announcement from the underworld. Her name was Li Honglan, and her seniority in Qingtian Temple was second only to the headmaster. She was one of the real leaders of Qingtian Temple. Now all forces have joined forces to target our Qingtian Temple, trying to subvert our reputation and even destroy our section. This move is really vicious, another person said with gritted teeth. These bastards, while the head of our Qingtian Temple is not at the mountain gate, are so unscrupulous. Do they really think that our Qingtian Temple is a soft persimmon? A person next to him cursed angrily, clenching his fists. Grand Elder, this matter must not be tolerated like this, another person also echoed. Li Honglan's face remained indifferent. After a moment of silence, she said, "What if this elder tells you that those so-called rumors are all true?" In an instant, the expressions of several people suddenly froze. This sentence exploded in their minds like a thunderbolt from the blue sky. Several people's faces changed drastically, their pupils shrank sharply, and they looked at Li Honglan in disbelief. Their heads were buzzing and they were so shocked that they couldn't speak. "Grand Elder, are you mistaken?" one person said tremblingly. They were unwilling to accept this absurd answer. "How can it be true?" one person asked with difficulty, his eyes flickering, as if he had a guess, but just refused to admit it. Li Honglan sighed, shook her head slowly, and said softly, "Yes, this is absolutely true, it can't be false." As soon as these words came out, these outer sect elders looked at each other, their eyes filled with astonishment, as if they had encountered a bolt from the blue, and the whole world collapsed. How is this possible?" Several people murmured to themselves, their mouths opened for a long time before closing, their expressions were dull, like clay sculptures. How could it be?" One of them trembled, as if he had lost his soul, and he didn't even have the courage to stand up. After a long time, someone finally reacted. He swallowed his saliva and cautiously tried, "Grand Elder, what you mean is, could it be that the head and Deizai have been hiding it from us?" He pointed at himself, obviously a little unsure. Because he really couldn't believe that Deizai, the head of Qingtian Temple, actually colluded with demons from outside the domain. This was simply shocking and unbelievable. Alas, this matter is a long story. Li Honglan sighed, a complex look flashed across her eyes, and then slowly said, "You are just outer sect elders, so naturally you don't know what secrets are involved in this matter." Hearing this, several people's faces showed a trace of embarrassment. As outer sect elders of Qingtian Temple, they were indeed not qualified to know. "Grand Elder, what should we do?" a female elder asked. "Yes, Grand Elder, should we tell the headmaster to come back quickly, and Deizai, if he can lead those elders back from Wanzhong Mountain, it can also help Qingtian Temple out of the urgent need," another person whispered. However, after hearing these words, Li Honglan shook her head and said with a complicated expression, "No need, their soul lamps are already half extinguished, and it is obvious that they have met with an accident." What? When these words came out, several people's eyes widened instantly, and their eyeballs almost flew out. "This is impossible," they subconsciously refuted. The soul lamp is the most important symbol of the cultivator, representing the breath of life. Once the cultivator dies, the soul lamp will be extinguished, which means the end of life and complete death. And their headmaster and Taoist son have already half extinguished their soul lamps, isn't it? Don't mention these things anymore, I have issued a gag order, whoever dares to leak it out will be killed without mercy. Li Honglan's expression was cold. Several people were immediately silent, not daring to say a word. But they still felt confused, and the fact that the headmaster and Taoist son died gave them a great stimulus. "Grand Elder, do you have a plan to deal with it?" someone else asked cautiously. "Since those people want to destroy my Qingtian Temple, let them go," Li Honglan said lightly, as if she had already prepared. "If we don't let them taste the sweetness, I'm afraid they will never leave." Everyone was stunned, as if they had lost their parents. But suddenly, Li Honglan's voice changed, which made everyone excited. "But, although the head of my Qingtian Temple is dead, he is not a vegetarian," Li Honglan said lightly, looking into the distance. "There is an ancient temple there, which is the temple where Qingtian Temple worships its ancestors. Later, this elder will join other supreme elders to wake up the ancestor and fight against foreign enemies together. And your task is also very simple, that is to take the most core inheritance of my Qingtian Temple and these outstanding disciples who have not yet grown up to leave here and escape this disaster. As for the rest of the mess, leave it to me." As she said, she patted a pile of jade boxes on the stone table in front of her, each box containing rare spiritual medicines. "There are some cultivation resources here, enough for those young disciples to practice. You must work hard to practice in the future and must not fall into the dignity of Qingtian Temple. Hearing Li Honglan's words, everyone's expression changed slightly, and their eyes were red. They knew very well why Li Honglan stayed here. She wanted to protect Qingtian Temple, even if she sacrificed her life. Seeing the expressions of several people who were extremely angry, Li Honglan smiled faintly. You don't have to worry, it's just a short separation, it won't be too long, my Qingtian Temple will rise again. Grand Elder. Several people stared at her with complicated expressions, and for a moment they didn't know what to say. Li Honglan said in a low voice, remember, you must conceal your whereabouts and don't let the enemy notice you, otherwise you should understand the consequences. Several people were silent, with serious expressions, nodding solemnly to show that they understood. Grand Elder, don't worry, we will definitely return safely, and make Qingtian Temple famous again and restore its former glory, a male elder said with a resolute look. Hearing this, Li Honglan nodded slightly. Let's go. Li Honglan waved her hand, signaling everyone to leave. Everyone took a deep breath, clasped their fists and bowed respectfully. We will follow the instructions of the Grand Elder, and we will live up to the high expectations of the section. As they said, they picked up the jade boxes and then bowed and left. When Li Honglan was the only one left in the house, she glanced around indifferently, and suddenly glanced at the incense burner next to her, and a strange light flashed silently. Immediately, she reached out and overturned the incense burner, and a puff of black smoke rose up immediately. Buzz buzz buzz. At this moment, the incense burner made a vibrating sound, as if it was struggling violently like a living thing. It was as black as ink, with complicated and mysterious runes painted on its surface, emitting extremely evil fluctuations, causing the temperature of the entire room to drop sharply. At the same time, an illusory black shadow emerged from the black smoke and condensed into shape. He, you are still ruthless. You used these outer sect elders and disciples to attract the enemy's attention, and then secretly left with Qingtian Temple's tens of thousands of years of savings. It's really wonderful, wonderful. The black shadow laughed strangely and said in a grim tone. There was no ripple on Li Honglan's face. She stood quietly in front of the incense table and stared at the black shadow coldly. Now that the disaster is ahead, we can only sacrifice a small group of people first to preserve a stronger combat power. Li Honglan looked indifferent and said lightly, if we don't do this, I'm afraid all 108 peaks will fall. Humph. We have been planning for so many years with great difficulty, how can we fail at the last moment? I won't allow it. The black shadow was furious and roared. Ha, do you think I am willing? Li Honglan sneered. If you hadn't bewitched Daizai, letting him kill innocent people without restraint and perform the blood refining method, how could my Qingtian Temple fall into this situation? You are talking nonsense. The black shadow said angrily, this matter has nothing to do with me. It's you idiots. Li Honglan ignored his excuses. She said lightly, now that the catastrophe has come, we can only take risky measures. She looked at the black shadow with a dim gaze, the so-called abandoning the small self and fulfilling the big self. Now that Daizai and the headmaster are dead, there are only you and me left in Qingtian Temple to continue this good fortune. He, that's natural, we are good friends who have been together for thousands of years, I will definitely support you, the black shadow chuckled. Li Honglan's lips moved twice, as if she wanted to say something, but she didn't say it after all. After a moment, she shook her head and sighed, saying, I hope you remember what I said today, otherwise none of us will leave alive. He. The black shadow laughed sharply and hoarsely, and then the body slowly disappeared, and finally merged into the darkness. It was not until the black shadow disappeared for a moment that Li Honglan murmured to herself, I know you are unwilling, but if you don't cooperate, I don't mind fighting to the death with you. For the future of Qingtian Temple, I must do this. Her voice became lower and lower, and finally disappeared silently.